is 10:17, and I'd like to call the meeting to order. We have an opening ceremony to do the Pledge of Allegiance, so everybody stand. The flag is over there. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Reverend Terry, would you like to lead us in a prayer? Where are you? Okay. Would you like to lead us in a prayer, please?
Let me still our hearts for a moment of prayer. Oh, merciful Father, we come this day just thanking you for allowing us to rise another day and seeing this day, the glorious day that you've given to us. And still in each and every one that's here, that we are here for the order of business, Heavenly Father, that your will be done today, Heavenly Father. Allow each and every one to clear their minds, clear their hearts, and let it stay on the business of order and task today that we're here for, Heavenly Father. Granted in each and every one of us. Bless those who have come, bless those that shall come. Give us all, each and every one, travel mercies as we depart, but not from you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Roll call. We will now have our roll call. Aisha Wright Abdullah. Present. Kim Eaton. Present. Thomas Godet.
Here.
John Hosier.
Here.
Pastor Moises Gonzalez. Pastor Moister Gonzalez. Sorry, Moises. Right. Joe Larkabet.
Here.
John Marshall Lee.
Here.
Susan Martin.
Here.
Steve McKenzie.
Here.
Dai McKnight. Kim Kelly Nims. Here. Dave Sweeney. Here. Reverend Terry Williams.
Present.
We have a quorum, so we were able to vote today. And we have, we are going to, with permission from the commission, I would like to move the approval of the minutes to the end of our meeting, because we have several guests here who would like to speak and share their input on the charter revision. Would
Second,
thank you.
your motion.
Yep, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so I would record this as unanimous. So the minutes will be discussed at the end of the meeting. Next on our agenda is a brief update about the budget for the charter revision process. And Tom?
Oh, yeah, sure. So, first of all, actually, if I can say one quick thing about these books that you were handed by the city attorney, if you haven't gotten one yet, these charter books, these are not the same as the ones you got last time. The clerk accidentally had the wrong charter. Don't ask how that's possible, but it was an old version of the charter. It had old language. So if you got one of these books at the last meeting, take a new one. If you're confused about which one's the right one, we can help you figure it out. So, anyway, so one of the items that was on our agenda for this meeting was to talk about the budget controls and the process of the mayor submitting the budget to council and council adopting it, which is in chapter 9.
Okay, so that's the second one that we want to talk about. So just the budget for this commission is old business. Okay, then I would like to move the budget for our Charter Revision Commission to our next meeting. Would anybody like to second that?
Second.
I didn't hear it, I'm sorry.
We do need to talk, on our old business, we wanted to talk about the budget for this charter revision. And it was not on the public notice document, so we are going to table it for next meeting. So I move that we table. Yes, motion to table it. Who was gonna second that? You're motioning it to first?
I second.
Yeah,
Okay.
we don't need a table, we'll just, you'll
Okay.
add it, as the chair, you'll add it.
Okay, I'll add it to the next agenda item. Okay, so we will move into new business. Okay. The chair will recognize a motion to the floor to bring up the budget.
Second. Second. Mr. Gordon.
And Mr. Gaudet?
Okay, so, chapter 9 of the charter, section 5G is the first thing that I think we're gonna take up. Remember at our last meeting, we made a list of kind of small potatoes items or easier things to kind of tackle first. This was pretty much an easy one. You got a handout that I passed out earlier, which has an item that was passed by the city council a few years ago pursuant to a state statute. And what it did is, the charter prescribes a process where the mayor has to propose the budget to the city council by a certain date, and then the council has to adopt line item changes to that budget, and then it goes back to the mayor. And there was a state statute passed by the legislature which allowed the council to change that deadline, and they only did it by 1 week. So instead of the current language in subsection 5G, which says,
What page that is?
okay, that, in your books, that would be 23 out of 69. So if you're in the charter book, page 23, at the bottom, subsection G, you'll see that it says, "The budget adopted by the city council as provided in subsection B shall be submitted to the mayor not later than the second Tuesday in May of each year." The handout that I gave you is a copy of the council resolution changing that pursuant to state statute to the third Tuesday in May. Now, it's a little clunky because the statute does seem to contemplate that the council on its own, without a charter revision commission, could make this change. Very unique. But it was never actually done in Municode. And just to have consistency, we thought it made sense to just bring it to the commission and have us adopt it. Anyway,
So that's a change to the third Tuesday?
so it would just be a change to the third Tuesday. And I can't remember, and we have the two budget co-chairs and council president can address it, if there was any other change in the timeline. I think that was it, right?
I recognize John.
Question, why is our copy noting that the mayor did not sign the report? Is that customary?
Yes.
Some,
If he doesn't sign it after 21 days, it becomes effective. So
Thank you.
it's not on. Kevin's not.
Thank you. So what we're being asked is, this is in effect,
and this one, we may have told him he couldn't sign it because the council was given sole authority. Perhaps that might have been one of the reasons, but I don't remember.
but the fact is that he did not sign it, and whether it was could not or whatever that his reasons, they're not pertinent to us today. We just want to recognize this is cleanup, basically. Thank you.
Do all of the commissioners have a new book? It has been updated? Did you all receive one today?
Councilman Newton, did you get one?
Moises didn't have.
Councilman Newton, did you get a new one?
He's not here. but we
He's
need to
not
hold
here,
one for
we need
him.
to hold one
Oh,
for
okay,
Moises.
okay. So, no, I can get more printed. That's fine. So do you have one? Get your hand.
No, he didn't get one.
Wait, have the hand up? Okay. So, yeah, this handout, if you read it, will just show that the council had taken action to change the deadline to the third Tuesday in May. And the thinking behind that, and again, the co-chairs are here if you want to hear from them, but they needed a little bit more time, because by the time the mayor submits the budget the first week of April, they have to do all these committee hearings and things, they need a little bit more time. But they couldn't delay it so much, because we need to have them take action, send it to the mayor then has a line item veto on their changes. They then have a chance to override that veto, and then 7 days after that, they have to adopt a mill rate, and then the city has to send out the tax bills by June for July 1. We don't send out tax bills in June for July 1, we're all in big trouble. So 1 week was about as much as could be accomplished.
I recognize Dave with a question.
I just want to make a statement that just for cosmetic purposes, that same language also occurs in H as well, so it has to be changed in H as well.
Great.
Good job.
Yeah, all right. Good.
The chair recognizes Scott Burns.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, just procedurally, Commission Member Gaudette referenced us as co-chairs, but I would like to respond through the chair, not to other commission members, so that's why I didn't speak up when Tom mentioned us. But thank you. Yeah, a couple of years ago, we made this change under, I would say, essentially emergency situation. It was based on state statute that was written to apply really to one other community a few years back during the 2017-18 budget crisis at the state level. So they amended their calendar. So my feeling on this immediate issue is it should be recognized as part of the charter. That's what the state statute said, that the council under these circumstances can make this very limited change to be amended into the charter. So I think it should be recognized like that. If you look at the online version of the charter, it's not there. And I think going forward it should be. On the broader issue of the budget calendar, I would respectfully ask that the commission strongly look at expanding the timeframe under which the council looks at the budget, because as it stands now, it's roughly a 4 to 5 week period. And since we have one of the largest municipal budgets in the state, and even if some of us are kind of on top of the budgets, it's still a lot to digest and go through in a very short time. So I think that's an issue strongly.
Councilman Burns, can you possibly get us a schedule that you think might apply, that's easier for the council to adopt, or for us to adopt?
Yes.
Because I know you're under very strong constraints in regards to the budget,
Right.
and hearing from all the different departments. So between you and your co-chair, Mr. Newton, can you please put together something that you can recommend to us to put in this charter?
Correct. Thank you.
Mr. Newton,
Thank
Councilman.
you. It also put us in an awkward, why it's important to do it this way is because it put us, the budget, in an awkward position with the mayor's office. And I'm not gonna go into a whole bunch of details, but it put the council in bad position to handle our business, because it was something going they didn't like, whatever it was. But there must be a separation between the executive branch and the legislative branch. And the way it stands now, it's in the executive's hands to do and to change it a little bit, to put some power back into the legislative branch's hands, which it should be. So this is why it's important to the legislative branch to have this in the charter. So there's no misunderstanding, and our legal team will see it, and they can make the right decision, which that was not done at one of our budgets, and it put us in conflict with the mayor's office, and this puts the power behind us. That's why it's important.
Thank you.
So technically, what you're looking for is more of a council independence,
More council.
more council independence in
Right.
regards to the budget.
Or it puts us on an equal playing field where where the executive branch doesn't have more power than there should be a shared equal branch of government. And that's not the way it is now.
The responsibility of the budget lies with the council,
I
correct?
would hope so.
Chair, if I can explain, give some context to what he's talking about. So what happens is the council by ordinance meets on the first and third Mondays of each month. And so in that month of May, back under the old rule, which is reflected in our charter copies, if they have to deliver the budget by the second week of May, but there's no meeting, it requires that the mayor call a special meeting. By moving into the third week in May, you no longer have that necessity to rely on the mayor for them to take their council action. So when Ernie says this, by making this change, we are giving them that, they're never gonna lose out on the opportunity to make the line item changes to the mayor's proposed budget.
Right.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion on this topic?
I have a question.
Steve?
Yes, it seems to me that with this budget constraint, wouldn't it make sense for each operating department have a timeline to prepare their budget to determine how each department operate? So before it got to legislative, where the mayor can collectively put a full budget together of their operation and what they're looking for, so it make it easy to go before the committee. But it sounds to me like that is not happening. And this is why we have the time constraint that we're fighting on the last minute in order to come up with a comprehensive budget. So each department is operating, each department have a budget that they're operating. Each department have an expandable budget. So if they can formulate that, that could be a collective budget. So when it goes before these guys here now, they have something to work with.
Thank you.
Someone who's in the soup on the mayor's proposed budget all the time, and Taisha can speak to this as a department head and Mark as a former, that happens now. It's a very difficult process to get a budget prepared. So actively right now, because we're almost there, we're almost in April, the OPM director is putting together the budgets for every single department in the city. Has to make sure that everything balances, and will propose it by the first Tuesday in April. And the reason that the council's asking for this change in the charter and took action on it before is just by the time they have to deliver the budget in May, so between April when they get it from the mayor and the third Tuesday in May, they've just got a lot of meetings. They've got all these budget meetings, which are on top of the city council meetings that already happened, and all their other committee meetings, and just life, So they just need this little extra breathing room. But the process you're proposing is the process that happens. But they want the opportunity to meet with the departments. They call in the fire department and the police department and public facilities, and they need time to do that,
I mean, the charter does provide that each budget agency shall, before a date determined by the mayor, report to OPM an estimate of what they need. What they don't do is define a fixed timeline, because that depends on how OPM's operating and the mayor's needs. At the end of the day, the mayor still has a deadline to submit the budget, but you're not gonna know necessarily from year to year what that deadline is. So if you look at Chapter 9, Section 5, subsection B, it does ensure that each department weighs in initially at the mayor's level. And then, as Tom was saying, they appear in front of the budget committee to the extent the budget committee chooses to interview them, which I believe they do with most every department.
John.
Commissioner?
Commissioner John. Commissioner.
I'm asking committee members to speak a little louder. I'm wondering whether the mic is picking up our comments faithfully. I'm sure the video is, but I have doubts from listening to previous videos. So the question that, or the suggestion that Scott Burns made about, or responded to, in terms of creating a timeline that would work for the city council is appropriate for us to take a look at that and compare it to the length of time the executive has, so that perhaps a new division can be extended that creates an opportunity for the public to be present at meetings they choose to be at over perhaps a little more time than has been given in recent years. It's a suggestion I'm making. But again, perhaps, Scott, you can suggest when you can have such a reasonable timeline prepared, and especially noting departments that you do not necessarily get to review, if there are any. Thank you.
I was gonna make a motion, but I wanted to ask for some legal advice first on this. If I
Okay.
can. I was gonna make a motion to adopt the change that the council made, plus the one that Commissioner Daid mentioned, which is really good, on H, to the third Tuesday in May. But I kind of wanted to, since this is our first time doing this, ask, what's the best way to do this? Because at the end of this process, we're going to adopt
Yeah.
a whole bunch of changes. So do we just do these meetings, kind of get a consensus, write them down, and just take one big vote at the end? Or do you think individual motions as we go are appropriate?
No, I think at the end, you might want to have it all in one place, so that you're approving the same one document.
Makes sense.
Unless someone's gonna take notes and have a working copy of all the changes, but that has to be done very well, right, for us to keep up with that. I think it makes sense to do it at the end. Margaret?
Otherwise, I think Taisha's obviously correct. You'll have to repeatedly redistribute new versions. So you should have a running log of the proposed amendments. Doesn't mean you have to adopt them all at the end. You can either do it en masse, or at that point, somebody can say, I move we drop number 6, or number 8, or number 10. But you should have them all in one place and then consider it as a whole, probably chapter by chapter.
So,
If you start amending now, you're gonna be passing out 20 copies every week.
so I did send to the commission a working document that has the original copy, and then we can
Mark
make,
it up.
right, mark it up.
Well, in that case, I motion we move on, because we have other speakers here and
Yes.
we're behind a little bit.
And
So
just,
this one was a simple one.
Just a simple question to the co-chairs. In section 7, section 8, and section 9, can you explain what exactly is, if you get monthly financial reports, number 1, explain to us what the enterprise funds are, if possible, just because this is part of our charter and I'd like to know what we're talking about. And that, just section 7, just a quick synopsis of what that means. Enterprise funds with section 8. I'm on,
24 and 25.
okay, thank you. And then section 9, special funds. Can you just explain what those actually are? Please, Mr. Councilman Burns or
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. Through the chair, the monthly financial report the council receives from the finance department by the 4th Friday of the month, so it actually rolls back essentially 7 weeks. So if we're approaching the end of March, we will get the February report at the end of March, which we then review at our regular meeting midway through. It won't happen this month because of all the periods, but the subsequent month. So there's a good 6-week lag in terms of the comprehensive report that we get. The report we do get breaks out by department, both revenue and expenditures. And there are comps to the final expenditures or revenues from the year before, year to date, that month, and then a projection for whether a certain line item will go over or be on budget or under. Many items are of a smaller dollar figure. We don't look too deeply into them. But there are other factors that we need to pay attention to. So that's part of the monthly report. And I think it's not improper to note that I believe Councilwoman Branley at the time helped bring this to life. The other aspect, and it's not in the charter, but we have begun to incorporate in terms of our regular quarterly reports, reports on staffing, particularly with regard to public safety. So we know, where are we on the police and fire budgets in particular, in terms of staffing levels, ranks, that kind of thing. So we're not in the dark for an entire year about what's happening to those departments. So it's helpful, and we certainly would like to continue that. Quickly on the enterprise funds, that essentially really refers to the WPCA. That's been essentially carved out from, I want to say about 30 years ago. Treated as a business effort, and they monitor manage our budget. But I'll stop there. I'll let my co-chair go to you, Chair. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think that the biggest piece of what we look at as budget is basically we try to track overtime, police and fire, because that's a big place where we spend money. And we try to the best of our ability, pick departments, the chief of police and fire department, to try to explain to us why the overtime budget is so high. So, 90% staffing whole, if I'm right, we track, I guess the police and fire are probably the ones with the biggest overtime. Every once in a while, public works might show up. We had a bad storm or something to that nature. That's, basically the departments that we try to watch. The other departments don't carry that kind of burden. But those three departments, and if you look at it, that's where the bulk of the money in our budget goes to. Okay?
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you. Did you want to say anything? Commissioner
Yeah, I have a question, and I understand Councilman Newton expresses the budget and police department overtime, and it seems like we're spending a whole lot of money on overtime in the police department. In the fall shot, what is our plan to hire a new officer so that we are burning out so much money in overtime that I'm hearing? What is our plan to put in place that we can have an adequate budget to use, because that's a lot of money burning.
Point of order, Chair.
Yeah.
I think your question is an amazing one, and you should come work for us and help us solve it. But it's not germane to what this commission has within, we can't really discuss that. That's for the city council to discuss, so. I'm sorry, it's a great question, and we can talk offline.
Thank you. Any other discussion pertaining to the budget and fiscal controls? Any other discussion? Okay.
We have a couple of issues in the legal raised for discussion. I don't know that they're essential, but the first would be, if you look at the timing of the budget process, it begs the question as to whether what's currently subsection F should actually be subsection H and come in at the tail end, where F talks about not later than the 7th day after the budget is complete, you adopt a mill rate. Logically speaking, I think F should be the new H, and it should come in after what's currently G and H. So you take a look at that. It's just an ordering issue. Whether the budget's adopted by virtue of the mayor not acting or the council overriding a veto, the mill rate still is always done on the very last day. And I think that should be at the end. So think about that one.
So your proposal is F comes after H.
F now becomes the new H, G becomes F, and H becomes G.
Right.
The only other suggestion I think we had was, and I'm not sure the language is perfectly drafted, but section 10 grants. One of the things that I think drives the council crazy and operationally burdens central grants is having to go to the council in order to get authority to apply for a grant. Now, it may be that some of the grant requirements issued by the state or federal government say you can't even submit if you don't have a vote of the council, but I don't think we should have that in our charter. At the very least, we should think about changing 10 to say each budget agency may apply for, comma, but only with the approval of the mayor and the city council, except, comma, grants. So you would be voting to accept the grant. You wouldn't have to vote twice. Once to authorize the application and then to accept it at the tail end. That would simply allow grants people to stop burdening you when they say, we got a deadline to apply for this grant and we're gonna add it to the agenda with a 2/3 vote, and everybody gets annoyed by that and say, well, you should have planned your timing better. Again, if the grant itself says you can't even submit without a resolution of your legislative body, that's one thing. But we shouldn't tie our hands in the charter.
Respectfully, I don't think it says what you say it says.
You don't?
No.
Okay.
It says each budgeted agency may apply for, and with the approval of the mayor and city council, accept grants. I read that to
Well,
say.
there's no
you
comma,
need-
there's no comma after 4. And if you put a comma after 4 and after accept, I might agree with you.
Well, I'd be happy to clarify that, because we do it the way that you propose we do it all the time, because sometimes we apply and we just can't accept what they send to the city council.
Okay, I was under the impression, because I've seen a lot of votes by the council to allow, am I wrong? Doesn't the council
Well, there are
ask them-
certain instances where the application will serve as an acceptance, and in those cases, you'll have to get approval in advance because the application is an acceptance. But otherwise, I think that you can apply and then accept after if that's an option.
Hey, if it's not a problem, you don't
Well,
have to do anything.
you can fix it or clarify by putting a comma after 4.
2 commas. I think we'd need one after 4 and then one after accept.
And with the accept, gotcha, remove the comma after council and move it to after
Yes.
accept.
Yes.
Okay.
Change, so we're just gonna basically say change commas.
Yeah, move
Yes.
commas.
Hey, commas are
They
important.
make differences, they
Yeah,
make
exactly.
huge difference.
Gotcha.
Shall or may?
So just to summarize what Mark was proposing is just to allow the city to apply for grants without having to go to council first.
And listen, maybe
And,
that,
and as Saisha points out, sometimes we're still gonna have to go to the city council even to apply because, as she points out, application is acceptance of the terms, but it's not necessarily gonna be required under Mark's proposal.
Councilman Newton,
No, that's okay.
any other discussion? Councilman Burns?
Right here.
Oh. Councilman Martinez? Councilman,
I just have a question, and this might be an attorney question. Usually when grant applications are applied for, then they come before the council. We review the application during our committee meetings. What we don't get back is follow-up from the grant department on whether or not those grants were approved, where's the money utilized, how much of the money was utilized, because a lot of times the grants do not get utilized fully, and we won't know till after the fact that this money was not utilized and that the city had to send it back. So I think somewhere in this line where we should add something to that effect, that council should receive a report that the money was utilized. And it was utilized for the purposes that it should have been utilized for.
Would that be charter or ordinance?
Councilwoman, is that a charter change, or can you just do that by ordinance? You want to do that by ordinance?
I'm just throwing it out there. I mean,
Okay.
we're on grant, so.
Yeah,
Directive to the department.
yeah, it could be either by directive to the department or by ordinance. I think that's be easier than making a charter change.
I'll draft that. Thank you, Attorney Thomas. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Burns?
Yeah, I'll just be very brief,
Sorry.
but Councilman Martinez does bring up a point about the entire timing and process, reporting, et cetera. Honestly, we play a little loosey-goosey sometimes, to Attorney Anastasi and Attorney Thomas's point. You know, sometimes we'll get a grant last minute. We don't really get a chance to vet it. And sometimes there's very legitimate reasons for the last minute approach. But I think, yeah, we should look at where the commas go on this. And grants is definitely an important part of our budget. So we should definitely look at that, but that's all I'm gonna say right now.
Technically, it would move the grant process along a lot faster, correct? Is that the bottom line?
I can't hear you.
Is that the bottom line, that it would move the grant process along a lot faster instead of going twice two-stop?
I don't know, because grants get applications and apply for them, and we never know when they have to be in until department heads bring them to us and say, we need this done today. Basically.
But basically, I think what we're talking about is allowing them to apply for grants without the original approval from the council. It's not necessary. Is that true?
In certain instances.
In certain instances. All right. All right.
Councilwoman Pereira?
As somebody who served on the school board, I would tell you, when we had grants, we didn't just get, we get a one-sheet paper about grants. We don't even get the grant itself. You know, grants have very strict covenants. As a matter of fact, 1 year in the Board of Ed, before I even joined the city, the Board of Ed had to pay back a $2 million grant for violating the covenants of the grant. The other issue is I rarely vote on any grant before the city, because you know what it says on every single grant application we get? That after we approve it, the mayor and/or his designees can change it in any way they want to without coming back to the council. So that is pretty outrageous. Approving what's in front of us, and then on every single grant document that comes before it, it says on the bottom, the mayor and/or his designee may alter this at their whim. And we don't even, it doesn't come back to us, so that needs to stop. Because we are the fiduciaries, we hold the purse strings of the taxpayer, and that needs to be totally eliminated. If we're approving something, how can you go change it after, you and your designee, and we don't even get to vote on it? It's okay if they want to make a change. You have to come back to us and say, these are the changes we need to make from when you originally approved it. So I'm against removing the approval of the council. And I will tell you, I know it's challenging, because often with grants, you have like a very short time frame to get it to the council. But I'm gonna say this, when people are unqualified and disorganized and incompetent, which we see a lot of, okay? I think at some point we have to say, we're gonna lose that grant opportunity, and that's how you hold staff accountable. You can't come to us constantly, here, vote on this today, we've gotta get it in, and that's what we get. So I don't think it's right that we vote on something, and then on the bottom of every resolution, the mayor or his designee can alter that grant and never come back to us for the change. So if we're voting on something as the fiduciaries and the legislative body, how can the mayor's office just alter how they're spending it, what they're spending it on, without coming back to us? So that definitely needs to be addressed, and that language needs to be removed out of every resolution that comes before us. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is an issue that is in resolutions that go before the council. This is not a charter change. That's also, I completely disagree with the characterization that you can change anything. It talks about documents in final form. These things all go through the city attorney's office. But we're far afield, and I just say as a matter of order, if we keep doing this and anyone just raise their hand and start talking, we're never gonna get through our stuff. Respectfully, I think we gotta, we've invited certain people that are germane to the topics to testify before the committee. We're not allowing for public hearings here, you know what I mean? I think there's a lot of great points being raised, I'm not saying that, but we should schedule those so we can keep on topic, because we've got people waiting and we're not moving on. You know, we gotta get past this. Respectfully.
Any more questions regarding the charter on budget and fiscal control? The next item on the agenda is Chapter 2, Officers and Election. We have the City Sheriff, Steve Nelson, and Wilfredo Martins.
We just threw that on the agenda.
Martins? Oh, it's not. Maybe we need a
We're doing it. Oh, and do you want to? Are we doing the registrars too?
Oh, that's next, yeah.
They're both 4-year terms, so if you want to kind of that together.
So we will also.
So we have in the room a couple of city sheriffs. We have an independent, a Democrat. We also have our registrar of voters, Republican, and deputy registrar of voters, Democrat, so pretty bipartisan. And I've got a handout regarding the registrar issue, but not the sheriff issue, but
So
if
should I
they're
just bring up-
related.
So should I just mention that we'll we will also hear from the registrar of voters, Linda Grace, and deputy registrar, Inez.
So, Chair, if you want me to kick it off, the issue that the sheriffs want to address and the issue the registrars want to address is 4-year terms. They're related issues, but the handout I just gave you is a citation to state statutes that talk about how terms of office work. And everything is presumed to be a 2-year term under state law, unless you have the power under your charter to amend it to a 4-year term. And you see those statutes are here. And so the sheriffs are before us, and they can speak for themselves, and the registrars are here before us to ask for that 4-year term. I also attached a copy, just a first page of an OLR report, Office of Legal Research, done many years ago regarding the registrar specifically, that more than half of the towns in Connecticut have adopted a 4-year term for their registrars as opposed to a 2. And with that, folks, let me know when
Yes, please, you have the floor.
So yes, having the 4 years will do better, so we can.
Do you mind speaking into the microphone?
Sure. Come on with the center stage.
Hi, Wilfredo Martinez, City Sheriff. Having the 4 years will help us serve the community better because we do pro bono, we do a lot of services. However, we would like to have the charter also be more specific of the powers and authority of the sheriff, because when we do certain service for other folks in the city of Bridgeport, we having a lot of difficult times communicating with the police department. As an elected sheriff, it says here there should be, our word should be enough for conducting our businesses as a sheriff. But I hope if the city attorney can work with us, we would like to see a little bit more specification of the duties and powers of what sheriff really is. Because right now I'm having a hard time working with the police department and the judicial system because it's getting clustered. And I am doing a lot of work physically with the public. So I would like for that to be addressed as well. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name's Steve Nelson. I'm one of the 6 elected city sheriffs. I'm going to just reiterate what my partner over here, fellow sheriff, said. Being a retired school officer, I do have relationships with the police department. But I could see, now that we have a new bunch of officers out here, a lot of the people that I had those relationships are not there no more. So it's important that the city defines what exactly our authority is and make sure that the police department knows that, so we do not run into any problems like my coworker here says that he experiences. Also, as you know, elections are every 2 years. 4 years does give us a little bit of a cushion, so we can, because we're involved in evictions, we do services for probate, we do a lot of different stuff. And so it would be helpful to have a 4-year term opposed to having to spend a year trying to get reelected and just 1 year of actually doing the duties. So I respectfully thank the commission for hearing us out, and much respect.
To the sheriffs, the point that Willie you made about what your powers are. So how do you know? So you get elected as the sheriff. So where do you go to figure out what you do?
So that's the situation we have. And the charter says the sheriff has the power above certain things. And when we go out there to do our job, for example, I had a situation where I had to remove a young boy from the mother because she kidnapped him from California. I get to the scene, I'm doing my job, and the police department comes and does the opposite of what I was supposed to do. They interfere with my job. According to the charter, if a police officer interferes with my job and my duties, I should be automatically elected for another 2 years because they stopped me from doing my purposes. And so that's something that the police department need to check, because I went through the charter, and the charter just specified how, only in 2 sentences what a sheriff is. But when I looked it up further into it, the city of Bridgeport doesn't have it. But if you look with the sheriff's stats, sheriff is considered a law enforcement figure that helps the city as an elected position.
Is there a clarifying question, if I may? Is there a set of statutes that tell you what sheriffs do? Is there a
So I had to go get trained. I got trained by Massachusetts because it's the only closest state that provide me the services that I needed to do the sheriff work. I paid that out of my pocket, and I went and took the training. I just had to translate it to the city, to the state of Connecticut and the city of Bridgeport, because there's nothing that you guys are providing for the sheriff ourselves. A lot of the sheriffs don't know what they can.
Connecticut doesn't supply anything.
The state of Connecticut did supply, but they don't have sheriffs no longer. They got done with them. They got state marshals. It's totally different identity. So state marshals cannot do stuff that we can do within the city, within the confined side of the city. The state marshals do Fairfield County, but they obey the Marshals Commission. However, we don't. We are our own identity. Steve happens to be a sheriff. I happen to be a sheriff. We all are different identities within the sheriff department. So we all conduct ourselves like if I was to get in trouble. Nobody can really come to me and charge a complaint because I am the sheriff. I am the person on the level. So that brings that attention to why it's not specified of our duties and powers. Because we should be able to do everything a police officer does except run the police department.
Mr. Marshall?
Through the chair, I'm curious, do you have a list of activities that you would like authorized?
No, but we...
Well, you're asking us to listen to something, and many of us don't have an issue from 1 year for 10 years.
Right.
With the sheriff's department.
So if you look.
So we don't see, excuse me, I'll finish the question. So we don't see the problem, the issue, the concern you bring to the group. And you're asking for us to authorize powers, but you're not giving us any indication of what they are. Everybody's bringing papers for us to read, review, consider, reflect upon before we vote. We'd ask the same of you, I think.
Okay, so when I was called to this meeting, I wasn't aware of what the agenda really was, so I came unprepared because it's my first time doing a meeting. But I could come up because the word sheriff, it says also a police officer. So pretty much that's what the word sheriff is confined within the city of Bridgeport. So pretty much, we're not asking to go and have powers to arrest. We're not asking for that. We're asking when we do performing our duties.
Could you put it in writing?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
That's what, I don't want to take up more time.
Yeah, no problem.
But I will review.
Yes.
I'm happy to.
Yes, I could do that.
Thank you.
Can I ask a quick question? Where in the chart, oh, I'm so sorry, you go right ahead.
So I just wanted to make a statement that I'm familiar with, when you use as a baseline for comparison, you use the criteria of other states and counties outside of Connecticut. And you do see the difference when you use that as a baseline. So in California, North Carolina, states like that, the sheriff has arrest powers. They can pull you over. I didn't even know. They pulled me over on the state highway, I-77. I'm like, what the heck the sheriff doing over here? He had the power to pull me over. So when you use that as a baseline for comparison, you can understand how they feel limited in action and what they can do in the capacity of their job and exercise their powers as a sheriff. And then additionally, me personally, I would be in favor of them moving it to 4 years every election. You know, when you get a new job, basically, sometimes it takes time to really get into a system, develop a system, improve a system of how you operate. So I'm in agreement with the 4 years. And I think that it needs to be looked at exactly what are the powers of the sheriffs in the city of Bridgeport, and that should be increased in comparison to other states.
Thank you.
Yes, I did. I want to say that, Mr. Nelson,
Yes.
as far as I know, how long have you been sheriff?
I think this is my third term,
And how long were you on police force?
35 years.
So I'm thinking that Mr. Nelson has more knowledge probably than everybody in this room on this subject matter, and that we need to use him as a main resource for the city of Bridgeport for this issue. Okay, because I've been seeing him in all the schools since I raised my children in the Bridgeport school system, and he's always been there. I don't remember him not being there.
Right.
And I know he's been a sheriff because I've been voting for him. So I think we need to use him as,
Can you conceivably get something to this commission by the next meeting?
Yeah,
Within the
how
next
often,
week or so?
when's the next meeting?
Well, because,
You didn't pick it yet.
We'll know once we finish the meeting.
we'll let you know.
That's not our
not even by the next meeting, but can you at least get something?
Yeah.
As soon as you can.
As soon as possible.
Because he's been on both sides, so he kind of.
Amongst all the sheriffs.
Okay.
I would like to.
And congratulations, I'm an alumni of Central High School.
Yes. We have our 50th reunion this year.
Okay, I would like to move to the registrar of voters.
Okay. Over here? I can do that.
Oh, yeah.
I have copies for all the commissioners and some extras. There's also a few extras. All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to address you on our request to expand the term of registrar of voters.
Can everybody else quiet down, please? I'm so sorry.
Oh, thank you. Okay, good morning. Still morning, I believe.
Yeah.
My name is Linda Grace. I'm the Republican Registrar of Voters, along with Inez Ayala, the Democrat Deputy Registrar, representing my counterpart, Patricia, who had a conflict today. As you know, this is a bipartisan office that runs it in a nonpartisan manner. We run under the state of Connecticut rules,
ungoverned under the Secretary of the State. But we are municipally elected. So consequently, we have been, Mr. Gaudet already passed out a couple of the statutes that we were going to refer to that talk about how by law the term can be changed by charter or ordinance. And that's what we're here to ask you to do for a variety of reasons. You have a packet, you will have a packet, everybody. There's been some time, there's been a lot of changes in the registrar's office over the last few years that really lead up to the need for a 4-year term. I've just gone very briefly through what we wrote. Our functions have significantly increased.
Definitely.
Okay? One change was the receiving of end-of-night reporting results to the Secretary of State. It used to be done by the town clerk. That is now our job also. We have to report the statistics. And God bless Inez, who's a statistic pro. We all those statistics to the Secretary of State. It's mind-boggling. They want everything from how you voted, by early voting, SDR, in person, everything down the whole line. They want all the statistics within a very short period of time. We have a couple of days.
72 hours.
Yeah, I said you were the pro on the statistics.
72 hours, and we have to do each individual precinct.
Yes. And we have 24 precincts, as you all know, during various elections. We also have to do early voting. We also have to do same-day registration for general elections. All of these things what I'm leading up to is additional training, additional recruiting of staff, additional hiring, and working. All these things take time. We have to go out into the community and try and recruit more people. We ask everybody we know, do you have some qualified people that we could hire for an election or a primary? Okay, so there's all that. And then recently approved by the voters, all of us, is a no-excuse absentee ballot, which will begin, I believe, according to the Secretary of State, in '26, where we're going to have to hire, or anybody will be able to vote by absentee ballot without any reason. That's going to lead to having to have a lot more absentee ballot casters, more recruiting, more training, more work.
More time.
More time. So, and then, this is one thing that Mr. Gaudet didn't get because we had to go through it. In 2016, under Secretary of State Merrill, it became mandated that registrars of voters must be certified. This requires the taking of a series of classes, 8 classes, which you have to pass, and then passing a final exam given by the Secretary of the State. Any new registrar, elected or appointed in the case of a vacancy, has 2 years in which to complete this process and become certified by the state. Then we're required after that to maintain at least 8 hours of continuing education every year. We go to conferences, we have online classes, et cetera, et cetera. So in conclusion, basically I'm saying is a 2-year term has become obsolete.
How can you become certified within 2 years, and it takes 2 years to get certified? How good are you at your job?
And as well, at the same time, hire, recruit, run elections, run primaries, canvassing. We've been mandated to do a canvass the first half of the year. All the duties that have been added on to the job of registrar of voters from way back. Some of you are old enough, as I am, to remember when basically registrars hired the workers, manned the polls, and said goodnight when the doors shut. Those days are long gone from what the registrar of voters do today in Connecticut. So I hope you'll take a chance to read the supporting documents that we put in the packet for you and give us consideration to expand this term so that we can go forward with the jobs we are charged to do in a
Get them done effectively as well.
more effectively and professional manner. And like I say, everything we do is under the direction of the Secretary of the State. Any questions we can answer? Yes.
2 years you have now, what are you guys proposing?
I'm sorry.
A 4-year term.
For a 4-year term. Currently, we are 2-year.
I heard you notice that you've been in this position for quite a while.
Yes.
So 4-year terms will be more sufficient for you.
Yes.
2 years,
Yeah.
carry the train and recruit the right.
Just, yeah. And the city also, another thing, of these courses we have to take, the cities, the municipalities have to pay for it. So if a registrar comes in and gets elected for 2 years, gets trained, and says, I'm not done with this, it's too much work, I don't like it, yeah, train another one. So it's also cost saving in that. It's a huge amount of money, don't get me wrong, we're not talking what you guys on the council deal with regularly, but it is, there is a cost factor in the process. Thanks.
Through the chair, I don't know if you highlighted this, but looking quickly at the list, it would appear that with the exception of Waterbury, all the larger cities, Stamford, New Haven, Hartford.
Right.
Yes, they're all 4-year.
What's the last one?
New London,
Norwalk,
they're all 4-year already.
Yes, they are.
Because of the same reason, because you got such big numbers
Yes.
to have to deal with. They're all 4-year terms already. And there's probably more, because this list is not the most current, it was the most current we could find.
Being the largest city in the state, we're the only ones that, with the amount of voters that are 2-year.
Anything else?
Madam Chair, for you to the co-chairs, I have a question regarding the certification. What's the term on the year for the certification if you're asking for 4 years?
You have to complete the process within 2 years of your appointment.
What is there certification a year, is
And
there a term?
then we're required to update it manually with 8 years of education.
8 hours.
8 hours, I'm sorry.
Every year you have to
Every year
update
we
8
have to do
hours of
8 hours.
education. So we're certified. We're certified. Once we get certified, we are certified just
I was certified in,
until we remain in that office.
yeah.
But we have to do 8 hours of courses each year, continuing education, so we stay updated in legislation, et cetera.
What happens if you don't do the certification?
They remind us that you don't, you better do it.
Yeah, we have, yeah.
Secretary of
to.
State gets to us.
My question was the same as Terry's. I think the question was, you get elected. Now, you have to get certified within 2 years, but you're saying, because your term is only 2 years, as soon as you've been certified.
Right.
You're done.
You have a new appointment.
Right.
Yeah.
So you are forced to do it, but under a new model where you're a 4-year term, you would do it once within 2 years of your
Correct.
election.
That's it.
And it would be good through the 4-year term.
Correct.
Exactly.
It would be good until we hold the office.
With the 8 hours every
Yeah,
Yes,
every
with
year
8
we
hours
have
of
to do
continuing
continuing ed.
education.
And we go to a conference every year, you know, generally we do most of them there, but some are in between too.
So you're given
I'm sorry, through the chair, I just want to ask a question. Do you have to get recertified every time you're elected?
We do not.
If you're reelected? Okay.
We do not.
No, no. I was certified in 2017, it was the very first class. And so I'm still doing my continuing ed every year though, to maintain my certification.
It's like being a lawyer. You just keep on
Yeah.
continuing
Keep up on the.
Right, exactly. You got it.
It's the fact is that like a lot of other professional activities in the business and governance world, continuing ed is part of the theme, number one. Number two, within your office, the actual registrar and assisting deputy or assistant or whatever, everybody does everything there. All hands on deck, basically.
Right.
So that there's constant training to a
Exactly.
high level, because that's, even though we've had troubles, I'm sorry to say, as a city in media, anyway, if not in the courts yet, through, we have not had accusations that I have heard about your office. So your standing is a high watermark for the election process, and we're observing changes in that process. So you're continuing to get the continuing ed.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Yep, absolutely.
Just a question, Mayor. Why didn't you all propose this at the last charter revision when the mayor became a 4-year term? That would have been.
I think it was, but it never made the final run.
Right.
It never, my historical, we're talking 30 years ago probably. 20
Joe Ganem just got a 4-year term.
Never did the 90s.
Excuse me, is this real?
I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
Anyway, to the chair. I believe it never made the final cut, in my recollection,
I'm sorry.
when the
I
final
don't know.
revision came out. Maybe Mark, maybe Miss, and,
Moving forward.
yeah, yeah.
We're talking about moving forward. Yes.
Is it within 2 years something that's mandated by the state?
Yes.
Yep. We are basically under the direction of the state.
Okay.
But it meant the state law requires that every municipality have 2 registrars. one Republican, one Democrat, or one Democrat, one Republican, whatever order you want to put it. And and then follow that other process.
Within 2 years.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And if you fill a vacancy, because a registrar left or whatever, you have 2 years from your appointed date.
Thank you.
So as a matter, I don't know if anyone has any questions, I just wanted to make sure people were following along on the actual change that's being proposed for both offices. So if you go to page 2 of 69, subsection E is where it says that there shall be 6 sheriffs and they're going to hold their respective offices for 2 years. They're proposing that word 2 go to 4. And then with the registrars, it doesn't say anything. There is no reference to a term, because I was searching. This is how I found out that we were handing out copies of the wrong charter, because it said they still had a 2-year term. So I think we need to add a new section, which I guess would be the new section F for the registrars, and that would be 4 years. So again, by operation of law, under Connecticut law and statutes that the registrars handed out, every term is a 2-year term unless we designate otherwise. The proposal would be we add the language. And then the question we need to answer is, when can this be effective? And I think it could be effective for the next election. So we'd have to probably, like you see when the mayor's term and the other terms changed back in the 90s, it said starting with the municipal election of November 1999. So we're going to have to figure out which municipal election this would start with, because you are up.
We run in state elections. We run in state elections. We're municipal officers, but we run in state elections.
So we have to come up with some language that reflects that, which is a little
Next
unique.
election. When's the next election?
That would be the governor.
Our next election would be in '26.
So the sheriff language might say something, at the municipal election held in November of 2027. And then blah, 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 4-year term. And for you, it would be,
26.
at the state election.
26.
Yes. The state election versus municipal makes sense. And I'm looking over at Mark and Taisha for this. They're pointing out that they run the state year, so instead of saying at the municipal election, let's say at the state election, or is that clunky? Should it still be municipal, because it is a municipal office?
Technically, that's the election.
Or just
general election.
The
general election in November.
And you're saying you're up again in
2026.
So if we adopt this charter this year in November, that wouldn't be a problem to have them in 2026, which is literally next year, start a 4-year term.
Right.
Yeah, that'd be fine, because it would be law by that time. It would be law.
Did you know, that's a great question, do you know why your election is on the state cycle as opposed to?
I think because we're under the discretion of the Secretary of
Right.
State. We didn't write the rules, but because we're governed under the Secretary of State's.
I could try to take a
and
look
the
and see if I
state
find
statutes.
statute that reference that.
Yeah, we looked
there
and
might
looked,
be.
we found as much as we
It's
could.
done that way statewide for all municipalities.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
And it's to
so,
have some independence,
yeah,
objectivity, blah, blah, blah.
yeah, that's as far
For
as,
registrars, it would be even years.
yes.
The sheriffs would be odd years.
But yeah,
Yes.
and if the 4 are approved, it'd be every other even year. Yeah.
Any more
I
questions?
want at least 4 years for both sheriff and.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Information provided. I do want to mention that lunch is here. It is salads and wraps. We do have the city clerk and the city and town clerk to speak, as well as the law department to speak. So,
Before you're done with chapter 2, I had some comments on chapter 2.
Okay.
And some proposed considerations, at least. Section 6, part C, speaks to bonds for certain offices, including
I'm
the
sorry,
city attorney.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I swear to you, I will go for my hearing aid evaluation after this. I can't hear with all the chattering behind us.
And I'll talk a
Sorry.
little louder.
Thank you.
I'm not
I
speaking
appreciate
very
it.
loud.
I'm very sorry.
Can you please repeat the section? So that's okay. So, chapter 2, section 6.
You can't hear.
Excuse me.
Can you guys?
Take it outside.
You can't hear.
Listen, it would be helpful if you bring a microphone too, that will help all of you.
I got
am you,
nothing.
because you're not in charge of it. I'm the city clerk, Lydia Martinez, and I'm not supposed to be talking here, because I'm not a commissioner, but a microphone is not on. Count?
This is picking up mic, this is audio for the
For the
recording.
video.
Oh,
That
okay.
doesn't deal with
Because
people
I-
talking in the
and that's
background.
why this issue is low, the voice is low for me. And it's not because we're talking, Susan.
I'll talk a little louder. I'll speak a little louder. So I'm speaking in regards to chapter 2, section 6, part C, which requires bonds for certain department or certain offices. So the assistant, the city clerk, the assistant city clerk, the town clerk, assistant town clerk, treasurer, sheriff, city attorney, director of finance, fire chief, and such officials are to provide a bond. I haven't provided a bond, Mark doesn't provide a bond. I don't know if we want to either remove this or enforce it. I just want to point it out that no one's following this rule. And with regards to the sheriffs, if you look at section 12, if we're gonna keep this language, and I know that there's gonna be some discussion as to the duties and responsibilities of the sheriffs, but if we keep this language, the city will ultimately be reliable for their actions. They should provide a bond. I mean, I would think that we would at least require a bond for sheriffs if they're gonna be out there doing the same things as police officers. But we currently aren't asking for that, and it's there. So I don't know what you all want to do with it. I just want to point it out that no one's following that rule. So perhaps we either enforce it or remove it.
So my question is that right now, our sheriffs are not bonded?
I don't think so.
I did research it, and I knew I did reach out to Lydia, and to her defense, she wasn't aware of, because it's not clear. But I have my bond. I went and looked for the insurance company. I did everything I had to do. When I called her and I approached her to ask her, because it's to the city clerk that we had to do this. So to all the defendants, is pretty much the city not communicating. Sorry.
Through the chair, what's the amount of the bond that you have?
I think it was, believe it's $5,000, right? I think if you look it up, I looked it up, it's like $5,000, but it's like, it covers us up to $1 million.
Oh, so what do you pay?
We paid $5,000, we cover ourselves up to $1 million, $2 million, in case something happens.
So it cost you out of pocket $5,000 for bonds?
Yes, if I wanted to be protected with the city, I would have to pay $5,000 out of pocket if anything happens. I mean, it should be lower, but that's what they said.
It's like insurance.
It's insurance.
Yes, I understand that.
It's to share the responsibility.
A sheriff should be the #1 bonded individuals for indemnity for the city of Bridgeport, correct? I'm surprised it's not enforced.
We can talk about that.
Well, I aside, thank you.
Did you want to share anything else with
No,
us?
just.
Tom?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, I'm just thinking, I think these bonds are very old school, and there's some ordinances too that say like the city treasurer needs to have bond stuff. We don't enforce any of that stuff, so I think it should all go away. But you raised an interesting point. I was just trying to figure out what was being said. The sheriffs are unique because they're independently elected, but they can do stuff that might get the city in trouble. Not their fault, not picking on you, but that could happen, right?
And there's no supervision, there's no.
Right, and unlike the police department, we
director,
can't discipline you, we can't, you know.
Right, yeah, it's completely.
So those people maybe should be an exception to the bond rule, or some kind of, one commissioner mentioned, maybe it was you, John, about some indemnity language or something.
We'd have to indemnify anyways when we
Yes.
Yeah, so they have
But it's nice to
statutory.
have the insurance
Yeah,
bond
they have
behind it.
statutory indemnification. The bond would just be indemnifying us, essentially, right? I mean, they would be paying us back, but they still have statutory protection. as any officer would.
So clarifying question on that, so you said you went out and you got
So I-
insurance up on, you paid $5,000 and it indemnifies the city up to a certain amount of money if something happens?
So it just covers me from acting in behalf of the city. So if I do something wrong,
Yeah.
I will be responsible. It's like the police officers. They do something wrong, they got their own insurance, they gotta pay. It'll be the same way.
The city pays.
Well, I understood that the city was, that the officers have to have their own insurance.
No police officer, they're all.
Well, when I researched it, it says that we can have our own insurance to cover for.
No, you should. You
Yeah,
have insurance.
so that's what it says when I researched it, so I don't have a problem with that.
Joe?
I do think there's value in having the language in there, but what I would like to see is some clarification, because a bond could be a promise, right? A lot of municipalities who have bond language in their ordinances, it is a promise to abide by whatever the, job duties are, or whatever the city expects. There could be financial ties to that, there could be other requirements, but obviously having, certain positions be bonded versus those that carry significant liability to the city, I think that bond needs to be a little clearer as to what is needed for those positions. So that's my only thing. I think there is value in saying that in these positions, the city expects you to meet a certain level or standard, and you sign a bond in which to protect that. But I agree, I think certain high liability positions, then that bond needs to be more clearly defined and probably stricter in what its responsibilities are.
Madam Chair, may I share a little of someone who deals with bond on a regular basis, just about every other day.
Could you speak up, please?
As someone who deals with bond in different capacity in my business, and I understood it very well, when you represent in a municipality in the capacity as a police officer, as a sheriff does, in that type of business, Bridgeport has always been the stepchild of everything you think of that's not helping it. I think it's very imperative that anyone going to represent our city, our community, and our people need to have the right legal mechanism in place, such as that if you're going to be a police officer or a sheriff, there's a requirement, just like in construction. If I'm going to do a building for the city, it requires a payment bond, a performance bond, and a certain amount equal to the value of your work you're going to be doing, which means that bond certificate would also adhere to the city, that if there's any intermission to the service that you provide, the city not hold liable, the individual that providing that service is all liable. So it make the city indemnify for any intermission. So I would recommend that anyone doing any work that representing the city have to provide the adequate bond equal to whatever that term and condition are for the service, and make the city indemnity to the bond, so that everyone is protected. So if we're gonna write this charter to protect the city, to protect our residents, to be more transparent and hold accountability, I believe this should be part of moving within the charter. So everyone, if they're gonna elect us, and the people of the city of Bridgeport gonna elect us to do our duty, I think this is where it starts. Checks and balance.
Any other discussion?
Through the chair, we have a few technical or clerical issues to raise for discussion. And I think the first would be in subsection 3C. Does it make sense to clarify what is meant by vacancy occurring in the final year of the mayor's term? Should it say final calendar year, so we're not calculating 12 months?
What page are you on? I'm sorry, 3.
I'm not sure about page, but it's
We were in bonds a second ago.
Chapter 2, Section 3, subsection C. Twice in there. Sure. Twice in there, it uses the term during the final year of such mayor. It's in the first line and in the third from last line.
Which is 5.
I'm talking chapter 2, section 3,
And
C.
5. And section 5 talk about elected official vacancy too as
Vacancy.
That
No,
language
that's-
is in section
That's not in section 5, to my knowledge. I'm just talking about the definition of what a year is. Is there ambiguity? I have no idea, but we're not talking fiscal year, obviously. But a year could be 12 months, as opposed to putting the word calendar there. I don't-
I mean, we know how to calculate a year, the last year of the mayor's
Well,
term.
what if it happens in November? Are you in the last year? You're not in the last calendar year, but you're 12 months out from an election. I don't care, I'm just raising,
I mean, it says of the mayor's term.
right? But is it 12 months or is it calendar year of his term? He serves in 4 calendar years. He also serves, listen, if it doesn't concern.
I mean, as a lawyer, I'd be shocked if you were gonna say if it happens in December of the last year of the mayor's term, that that's not the last year of the mayor's term, even though it's not the last calendar year of the
Well,
mayor's term. I'd be pretty surprised if that
You
was
think
true.
so? All right, then leave it alone.
But I mean, okay, listen, if you want us to
I
clarify.
don't care, leave it alone.
Well, how would you clarify it without using the word calendar?
Well, that's.
You'd have to say the last 12 months, so maybe just leave it alone, I'm just raising it for thought. So put that one on the back
Attorney
burner.
Mark, can you, on that one, how I'm reading it, it says other than the final year.
Again. the
No, I'm
question-
not, I'm asking the question, I hear what you're saying, far as a fiscal year or a
No,
calendar year.
I don't want to get into fiscal year.
No, I'm saying, what you're saying here, you're trying to define the term year. I'm trying to clarify it in the notes, so I want to understand what you're saying,
My
okay?
question is the final year, the mayor gets elected in November, assumes office December 1st. The question is the final year, the calendar year that starts January 1 of the next election, or does it start December 1 because there's still 12 months to go? It might be something that
Thank you.
never is going to be an issue.
Yeah, and I think
But if a
that-
vacancy occurs in December, is that the final year? And I can see us having a debate on it if it ever were to happen.
Okay, thank you.
Section 4 and 5, I think consistent with section 2, where it says all officers elected or appointed shall be residents and registered voters of the city. I would think section 4 and 5, where we're filling vacancies, should not simply say registered voters, but should also say resident and registered voters of the city, just for consistency purposes. So that would be in the second paragraph B of 4 and in 5. You just mirror the language that's in section 2.
All right, read.
You go to section.
What is the language?
Section 4.
No, let's start with 3 that you want to mirror. You're saying it's in 3 and you
No,
want
it's
to
in
know?
2. It's in section 2
Residents and registered voters, yeah.
of the city of Bridgeport. Now you go to 4 and 5, you're filling vacancies, and it only says registered voters. It doesn't say resident. Now, obviously, you have to be a resident in order to be a registered voter.
Well, can't we just say electors, like every other
I
statute?
don't care how you say it, I'm just arguing.
It doesn't everything in the world say usually electors?
Consistency
Maybe we
is
should
looking
change
at.
all of it.
Yeah, just make it consistent.
Yeah,
Yeah, the
that's all.
consistency.
And then there's one other thing, in the first line of section 5, it says unless otherwise provided in this chapter or the general statutes. I don't like limiting it to general statutes, I would say, or state law, because there are certain things that are dictated by the Constitution, by state regulations. It's a broader term than state statutes.
So you're saying get rid of general statutes and put
State law.
State law.
If you jumped, same,
Wait, what number was that again?
five,
First line.
first line.
So instead of general statutes, state law.
Okay.
The next one would be section 9. I think, okay, Taisha's got some other stuff. But in section 9, similarly, except as otherwise provided by this, here we don't even say statute. So I would say otherwise provided in this chapter or by state law. And Taisha's gonna have some stuff in 10, but, let me do my, you do 10 and then
Well,
I'll
for
jump back.
10, I was just adding to the very end of 10, for the remainder of the vacated term, With regards to the registrar.
The deputy registrar shall become registrar for the remainder of the
Yeah,
term.
for the remainder of the vacated term. Not indefinitely.
Jumping to section 14, I think there's a typo. I think. The fourth from last line, it says, secure the attendance of witnesses before said boards or committees. I think that should be commissions to be consistent with the first line.
What
The
section?
presiding officer, boards or
Okay,
committees.
top of page 5, section 14, under subpoena powers.
First line
1,
says,
2, 3, 4 lines down, it says boards or committees.
that should be commissions, because in the first line, it says commissions, not committees. And then the last stuff is section 17, removal of officers. Each of the, I think at the end of section A and the end of section B, it should, where it says may be removed from his or her office, I think this should be added, or impose such lesser discipline or penalty as permitted by law. The way it is right now, I'm not even sure, to be quite honest with you, we'll have to take a longer look at this. I'm not even sure there's a right to remove certain people, certainly elected officials. But putting that aside, if you have the authority to remove, you should have lesser powers to penalize in a lesser manner. So I think it should say, he or she may remove such person from office or impose such lesser discipline or penalty as permitted by law. Lesser
Say one more
included
time, I'm
offense.
sorry, one more time. Or
At the end of paragraph A and paragraph B, I'm asking you to consider language that says, comma, or impose such lesser discipline or penalty as permitted by law.
And that law would be general statute or state law.
Yeah, or anywhere else in the charter or collective bargaining agreements or wherever else might apply. Same thing in D. It says any official removed, this is the appeal power, to go to the Superior Court. I would think we'd want to say any official removed or otherwise disciplined or penalized pursuant to the provisions can appeal. So we'd add in there, or otherwise disciplined or penalized. And then the final technical question is, and I think I'm right in this, but I could be wrong, subsection E, where it says provisions of chapter 19, I think that should be chapter 17, but I could be wrong. I look at chapter 19 and I don't think it has anything to do with this. Chapter 17 is the civil service provisions. So I think that should be 17.
Well, you know, I would, well, first of all, I agree on the 1917 thing. I think that was supposed to refer to 17, so that's civil service. But quite frankly, as you raise that, I forgot to even read this section. I mean, a lot of this stuff isn't even legal. And so it's like,
that's a larger.
First of all, and I'll say two things. One is, with all due respect to the mayor, who the hell is he to remove another elected official, one? And two, with respect to disciplining employees of the city who may be officers for the purposes of the charter, I want that to go through a normal civil service process and be governed by that.
But what if you're a mayoral appointee? Because that's what I thought that would be referring to, people appointed to office by the mayor.
Unclassified.
Yeah, unclassified.
Well, that should, then I would be in favor of blowing this up and just leaving that for section 17 when we talk about civil service.
I mean, the mayor should be allowed to remove his cabinet, well, except the city attorney.
Oh, I completely agree.
I'm appointed for a term, so otherwise, if you're not, then he should be able to remove.
No, I just think it should just be in the civil service section under, which we're gonna deal with, but I don't think we should.
And you raise a good question, because we, me more than Tasia, because I was here longer, we've been sort of punting this issue down the road. It comes up in the context of the city council fairly regularly. Is there, what discipline authority do we have over elected officials? So maybe this should sort of be put on the side and we'll have to do a little research in terms of address the McGiller in the room, so to speak.
Well, I would ask then, that the city attorneys look into this, but my thinking is, actually, we just abolish section 17 altogether, is my initial thought, that this just doesn't work.
Mr. Gordon, Mr. Chairman, I have a question. In regards to the conversation going on here and about this chapter. I'm sorry. The conversation I have, or the question in regard to this chapter about fire and shouldn't be it a more appropriate action that if the mayor appointed a cabinet member, who should be voted in by the city council, and if something come up where there's a mischief or they violate their duty and responsibility, shouldn't it be the voted member of the city council who put them there? They're the ones supposed to take charge to investigate the matter and determine that if that here individual should be terminated from their position. I think that's the checks and balance we need to do here, because if we have the mayor deciding who get and fire if something has happened, I don't think that's appropriate to the city and to the management body. I think it's more appropriate that if the mayor appointed them and they have done something under the scope of their duty, the city council who vote them in should be the judiciary and decide whether that individual violated beyond a reasonable doubt to decide their termination.
Well, that's why you have A and B, because there are certain people that the mayor has unilateral authority to appoint, and they don't get council approval, and that's what A addresses. B talks about matters where the city council appoints. There it's both the mayor or the city council can discipline. But I think Tom is probably correct. We should take a look at the viability of the entire city.
Well, now that I think about it, though, I forgot about commissioners. Is this really, in other words, my proposal is to leave employment issues where employment issues belong, which is in chapter 17, which we'll get to another day, and it's going to be very long and complicated. But I'm really thinking about elected officials or appointed commissioners. And I guess the subsection B that says that a commissioner who misbehaves is appointed by the mayor, and the city council could do a hearing and call them forward and say, hey, why are you a knucklehead, and potentially remove them from their commissionership in the middle of their term. That doesn't sound to me to be crazy.
So we should look at limiting the whole section to
Correct.
commissioners.
Maybe just to, you know what I mean? Because I think, again, because if you're an elected official, I don't know where anyone gets the authority to remove them. That just doesn't sound legal to me. And again, employment stuff and who's unclassified appointee of the mayor and who falls under civil service is just a whole nother animal.
All right, so that's something we gotta look at and bring back.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Should exist for commissioners.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Madam Chair, I just want to make a statement. Some are going to like it and some aren't. First and foremost, we're talking about making changes. We need to comply with boards and commissions on their standards of the years that they're supposed to be on the board and commissions. We currently have a ton of board and commission members that are overly exceeded their seats where they have expired perhaps maybe 2018. So when we talk about making changes on this charter, let's also review the length of time that these board and commissions or whomever appointees and the length of time they've been in office. I mean, I'm always saying that because we could sit here until we're purple in the face. A lot of this stuff on this charter is not followed by the city of Bridgeport. So in making a lot of these changes, we need to change and follow our own changes and our own regulations and start with the period of time that these individuals are elected to office. And do we replace them after their term expires? We do not. They just sit on there forever until anyone decides that they want to appoint someone else to the board and commission.
Thank you.
I'm raising the issue, I'm sitting here in the law department. I've got lawyers to the right, lawyer to the left, and I'm not a lawyer. So I try to find the humor in any moment, okay? So I'm asking a question of back to the section 12 page 4, at the base, sheriff. We have sheriffs here because they're used by the city? I don't think so. They're used by the court system. Yes?
No. No.
Okay, I'm sorry?
No.
No, they're not used by the court system?
Sheriffs are allowed to use.
Probate, I'm looking for your list of alternatives, okay? That's what you said you'd get me, a list of all, of activities that you have. It seems to me at the moment that while California and many other states on national television are showing up with sheriff combinations, that the state of Connecticut, one day, 30-plus years ago maybe, abandoned a sheriff system when they abandoned a county system. I'm sorry? Okay, where are there sheriffs other than Bridgeport? So I'm just saying, I'm wondering, why do we have sheriffs in our charter?
That's what I was wondering.
Okay? So there may be a case for it, but again, I can't look at it without, and offer an opinion on it until I see the facts of what you're doing, who you're doing it for, and if you're in our charter, then I'm concerned that you have police powers or conflicts with the police because of confusion with the electorate, which I'd rather us use the term residents who are registered rather than electorate, because I think a lot of people don't know if we walk out on the street and ask people today what is the electorate, they know what a resident is, or think they do, and what a registered voter is, because we've got an unconflicted registrar department. They work together. So this is good. So maybe I'm asking whether we want to go back and consider the list that the sheriffs are going to put together for us, and understand bonding is only one thing. Personal bonding, I had to do that in the insurance business. 60 years, I had to put up errors and omissions and bonding declarations to companies. But what are we doing for the city population? I'm not. I'm asking you for an action. I'm asking my fellow commissioners to consider that when we get to look and reconsider this again. I just wanted to get back to it before we forgot about it, because legal hopped in, and I want to make sure they were through before I raised the issue.
I just want to make a point real quick. So if right now the authority in this room, if it was to be run by properly being the chairman who have the authority, we will enforce her authority by the city charter and the city law. That's what the sheriffs do. When they have political meetings, we are the policing to that person who's in charge. I just wanted to bring that across to you folks. We have been staying quiet. This young lady had to ask people to be quiet. We should have been doing that. But the reason is because we don't have communication. It doesn't work that way. That's what we do for the city as well.
I'm open. I'm keeping this one open because you need to communicate. You haven't. I don't hear from one election to the next on sheriffs. I know people who run for sheriff. They make an income. They perform services. People pay for it. It's a business.
Excuse me, John, we did talk, you did request that they share
Thank you.
information, so
Thank you.
they will provide that for us, and I would like to move the discussion.
Move it along. Sorry,
Thank you.
I just said.
The next, we have also the city, chapter 4, city and town clerks.
So Chair, we have with us Francis Ortiz, who is the assistant city clerk, and we have the city clerk here as well. But I think Francis is going to lead the conversation on this, and I think you have a... yeah, I'm going to hand this out.
There you are.
Francis, thank you for all.
Francis
all
or
words. It's nice to put a face to the name. You, I know.
We've been together for many years, okay? Well, let me say good morning first. I'm Lydia Martinez. I'm the city clerk, and I'm here with Francis. Francis is the one that knows everything that is going on in the city clerk's office. And she's good to the people that go there. So whenever you need something, the commissioners, please feel free to come and ask us, and we will help in any way that we can. I'm glad to see so many friends in here today. Yeah, Susan? Okay, I'm going to let Francis have the floor.
It's your presentation.
He mentioned you, so I'm going to follow what he said. Did you say you want Francis to do this?
Oh,
or
no,
you?
no, I didn't know.
Okay, you see, I follow rules. A teacher for 35 years with Susan's mother, working together. Okay, so we're here to, let me go get my glasses. I don't see without them. We're requesting two changes in the city charter. One is to change from assistant city clerk to deputy clerk, and the other change is to add an assistant to the deputy clerk and to myself. Those that know Frances know that she works very hard. She takes care of everything in there. I'm there with her. I'm elected to do what I need to do too. But Francie has a lot of work. Francie takes care of a lot of different things that are happening for the city of Bridgeport. She works with the bonding commission when they need. I've seen her meeting there with the lawyers. She works with a budget that we have in our office. She supervises the other clerks in there, and she assigns work for them. She signs for me when I'm not there. So it's a must to have Frances in there working on that. And she oversees all the documents that we have in our office. That's why I said that some of you know her, and I'm sure that you have had the good experience of working with her, because she knows a lot. She's like an open book. So I would like to, and also we check around City Hall, and there are other offices that have what we're requesting already. So that's something for you to consider. So I don't know, Francis, add anything else that you would like to?
Can you explain to me the difference between a deputy that you want assigned and an assistant? What's the difference between the two?
Okay, the deputy is the one that, let me see. She entires the entire time that she's there to the duties of the city hall. If I get sick, she's there to sign for me, to do the work that I'm supposed to do. She's very busy. She's very busy, and I'm sorry I sound so stupid when I cannot elaborate on this. I was invited this morning to this meeting, so I rushed here. But the importance of the deputy is that, as I see with other departments that have the assistant and the deputy, is that one could rely on the other. One could ask the other, the deputy could ask the assistant to take some roles that perhaps as a worker, as a clerk, cannot do. So if ask me any other questions, I could answer if I could. But you could ask also Francis, because I think Francis might be able to do better than me. Go ahead, Francis.
Okay. Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Frances Ortiz, and I'm the Assistant City Clerk for the City of Bridgeport. Just to elaborate a little bit so that you guys have an understanding of the difference in positions. The city charter was written years ago, right? This is all, like, we're here now, we're trying to clean up the language. And the assistant title, to me, is not what I am. Because number one, in the absence, and if you read the charter, in the absence of the city clerk, I presume all the responsibilities and duties. I supervise the office, I go to court and testify, I signed up on all city documents, seals, research, and the title, like there's other titles in the municipality that are carrying the deputy title. So we're just trying to stay consistent with other departments, because at the end, an assistant is just an assistant that I look at someone that's not there as a role every day to perform the duties that I'm performing. So if that clarifies a little bit on the difference of a title versus, you know, an assistant.
Thank you, Francis.
I think I try to give a clear synopsis.
We have some questions.
Senora?
If I understand correctly, you're asking for a change in a position title and adding a position that I don't feel we have the authority to do.
No.
You wanna, you.
To be clear, the position for assistant will be something down the road that will be added, and that's, again, if you see where we wrote the language at, it says pursuant to fundings, pursuant, this is something that we will have to do through like civil service,
The clerk
but
would like to add the title of assistant city clerk. to
no,
be
giving
changed.
us the power to be able to.
I'm just reading what you wrote.
Go ahead, go
I'm just reading what
No,
you
I
wrote.
know, I know.
I'm just reading what you
That
wrote.
could be fixed,
and-
that could be fixed.
Okay, that can be fixed, but what I'm saying is, right now, as it's written, I don't think we have the
Thank you.
authority to do this.
Thank you.
Okay, that's all I'm saying.
Thank you very much.
That's all, because that's why I was trying to
Yeah.
chime in
No,
with.
no, 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 you're right.
Okay,
No, and
I'm-
and again, this is why you guys are here. The attorneys will review everything, and they will make sure that the language is written in proper form
Yeah, that's
before
another
anything
part
gets
that
done.
would have to-
Francis,
And then we can add it here.
yield to them.
Can I say something? I
Thank
believe
you.
I believe we have that authority, and I understand, I don't know if you're understanding, what she's saying about this position. The deputy position is the position that the work she's doing now is deputy work.
Yes.
She's not doing assistant work. Assistant work is, right, she's in court, she's doing all this other stuff, and she needs the title.
So what she's saying is you want to change your name from assistant to deputy.
Yes, her title.
And then eventually you want to have an assistant for you guys.
Exactly.
When the budget permits,
Miss it.
so.
The change in language, can we do that?
So, okay. Let me.
So just let Tom clarify.
So, by the way, we're on pages 7 and 8. And by the way, even though they're not here, the assistant town clerk, Christina Resto, and the town clerk feel the same way about theirs. It's a parallel language. They want to change, I think you're understanding it right, they want to change the word assistant to deputy, because they like the title better. I will clarify that depending on where you are in city government, assistants are higher than deputies, and sometimes deputies are higher than assistants. I'll give you an example. In the fire department, deputies are higher than assistants. So the deputy fire chief is higher than the assistant fire chief. In the police department, the assistant chief is higher than the deputy chief. And you can go all throughout city government and find examples of both. So it's a whole lot about nothing, except that I tend to agree that deputy sounds a little better. And there's more to this. And to Terry's point, which is well taken, some of this is a language change in the charter that we would need to do, but some of it is a civil service and budget issue, which is not before us. So I agree with you, right? Like, we wouldn't put in this document if we change this to deputy, we wouldn't also say, oh, and by the way, there's also an assistant. We wouldn't do that. Whether or not that gets proposed and the council wants to adopt that as part of the budget, fantastic. And by the way, once we change this to deputy, doesn't civil service then need to create a different job class? Calling an assistant, what's that duty? So we have to go through all that stuff.
And through the chair, there's one other issue too, and that is that for town clerk, there's more than one potential assistant. It says assistants. There's only one in the city clerk, but my understanding is there's more than one in the town clerk.
Yes.
And then you designate one of them as a super chief assistant. So there's a bunch of issues.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, I have a simple question.
Go ahead.
Your position is as an elected official, is it a full-time position
It's
as the mayor, or is it?
20 hours a week.
Part-time.
Part-time, yes.
So who picks up that slack?
So
Also,
she does.
with the town clerk's office, that would be 20 hours too?
I don't know.
Yeah, he's an elected official, so they're
Okay.
part-time elected
Yeah.
officials.
Is there a reason why it's considered a part-time position?
That's how the charter was written. I don't know, maybe Mark could answer that.
So,
You have a hand.
This issue actually was raised recently by by the city and town clerk. And I think there's some interest in them wanting to be full-time, but it's not prescribed in the charter as either part-time or full-time.
We can take it up as an issue, correct?
I actually think you could, it just doesn't say anything. Right now, it's a budget issue more than anything, I don't think.
It's a budget.
It doesn't reference it.
Can I just, for further clarification, there's a salary attached to the position, correct?
Yes.
Now, and that's done by the council, correct?
Yeah.
All right, so if we change it from a part-time to a full-time, does that mean we have to change the salary?
Yes.
What will you, 20? You work for free? John?
Just a question, I'm throwing out there.
This depends on the budget too, the budget of the city.
I think we should, personally, I think we should address a full-time versus a part-time, just for edification. Thank you.
I'm gonna go with Mr.
Go ahead, John.
Good.
So, yeah, I'm very happy with my relationship with your office.
Thank you, John.
Thank you. And I have supported your activity because I've got more action with your office than with any other office.
They're very
in the
good.
community. So I support fully the notion of deputy as opposed to assistant.
Thank you.
And whatever further division you would come back with, I would listen to.
Thanks.
What I'm raising is, and I have, even though the town clerk's office is not with us today, I've had activity with their office. As a matter of fact, through the council, 7 years ago, we have this registry of residents and voters that only had 15 signatories last December, okay? And now has 75 as of last week, meaning by January 31st, people who are on boards and commissions, people who are elected office are supposed to give their residence up. So there's no enforcement to that, but we'll come back to boards and commissions later on. What I have observed and call to attention is, why do we have, I know historically, there's a historical story why we have a town clerk and a city clerk, and I know procedurally, structurally, why we have governance responsibilities with whether we call her an assistant or a deputy, and I prefer deputy.
I do too.
The same thing over with the town clerk. So if we have orderly behavior from both departments, I guess what I'm asking is, why do we have why do we have a city clerk, and why do we have a town clerk with part-time duties, which are not professionally part of the duties, but they are pleasant representatives of the city? They are political figures, okay? And this is a charter, this is the structural governance of the city. And why do we have them? So I'd rather have a discussion about that first, and know about that first before we ever begin to talk about full-time and budgets and all the rest. And I would like somebody, perhaps the city clerk, can address why we need to have a city clerk.
You want me to answer that? Because, first of all, I care. I know the community and the community needs that sometimes come back to the city clerk's office and reflects what we do there. And I'm there doing the job with my assistant and with the rest of the clerks. I'm one of those show person that is there all the time. I communicate from my office to the mayor's office all the time about things that we have in our our office or in the community that matters. So I would say that I am like a city clerk liaison between the community and the city of Bridgeport. That's my answer.
Through the chair, just for clarification for anyone who may not know, the good news is the two offices operate in entirely different functions and responsibilities.
Thank you, Mark.
The town clerk handles elections and land use records. The city clerk staffs the city council, its committees, the boards, commissions, etc. I'm not saying it's mandatory that they be separate, but there are distinct lines drawn and the staffs have separate responsibilities. And as best I can determine, at present, at least, they're significant staffs and they're all gainfully employed and necessary.
And we need it too. We need it.
Well, I would suggest that if it's not broken, don't fix it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mark just clarified one of my questions about the duties of the town clerk, because the duties of the city clerk is a paragraph long, pretty detailed description, and the duties of the town clerk basically just says they can do anything vested by law in the town clerks, vested by law in the town clerks of towns. Might be a typo. But of all the major cities, other than Waterbury, we are the only one that has it split. Stamford, New Haven, and Hartford. I'm talking the larger municipalities. So Stamford, New Haven, and Hartford all have a combined council. I'm just curious, again, and I appreciate your explanation, that makes sense, and Mark says we have very clearly delineated duties. Fine, if that's how we want to continue. But I was just going to throw that out there because it seems we are a little bit in the minority when it comes to how we staff these offices. And if they both have adequate work to do and they're working in concert with each other, which appears it does, I'm fine with the language as is, but I just thought that it would be a discussion to see what we want to do.
Just a little more historical note here. I think the current number is, only 46 of the 169 municipalities are combined or consolidated town and cities. So that's a historical. The reason why we have the two is originally Bridgeport was a town, then it became a city when it incorporated. And I think there's 45 others that are similarly situated as consolidated towns and cities. Now, of those, how many might have two separate clerks? You would know better than I, because I don't have that information.
Taking them in backwards order, I agree that we should keep the offices separate, because I think what would happen is we would just end up having all the same staff doing all the same stuff anyway. I don't really know how much of a consolidation would really be when the town clerk, election time comes around. The town clerk's office is like, a crazy place, and it's just very different than what the city clerk's office does. But to John's point, I think you missed the point of what John was saying. And it's no disrespect. I think the question is not why do we have a city or town clerk? Because we need them by statute, they serve certain functions. The question was, why is it an elected position as opposed to a civil servant, which is the more modern approach? Now, I personally think that is a good approach, except that I firmly believe that any changes we make to this charter should not impact any current occupants of any office. That's just wrong, in my view. But I would be fine when Lydia's done with her role or Charlie's done with his role, many terms, maybe a couple terms from now, to just eliminate this as an elected role and make it a civil servant. Yes. I would envision one day, and this is just me, of course, and this would be civil service, but you could be the city clerk in a civil service role and it just wouldn't be elected anymore. And maybe that's like the municipal election of 2031. 4 years, we just phase out the election of this office, because that is the modern approach. Because the duties of the office are pretty prescribed. They're pretty set forth on what you're supposed to do, kind of neutral. You just, that's my take, and I think that was the gist of your question. And it could be full-time, so this debate that John raised about part-time versus full-time, now you've just got a full-time professional staff doing the duties both of the town and city clerk, but I do not believe it should impact the current occupants at all.
Through the chair, we'd have to look at the statutes, whether they mandate elected positions or not. But the other issue in terms of what Tom is speaking to is the concept of grandfathering the current occupant of positions. Now, it gets a lot trickier when it's easy to say we're going to grandfather the current person in a position where it doesn't have a term of years. When you say you're grandfathering somebody who only has a 2 or 4 year term, does that person continue in there if they run again and get reelected?
So I didn't use the word grandfather, you did. I said not impact the current occupant, and my thought was if we set it in as effective 2031, that election.
Yeah, that's what they were
To
wanting.
take office December of 2031, that our current occupants, I would assume, won't be there. We have plenty of time to run for it and do that if they still want to. That's up to them. And you don't have to make any announcements about your future political ambitions.
I'm getting old.
But my point is, set it out into the future so that it wouldn't affect the current occupant. So then we don't get into the issue of Lydia decides to run again for the rest of eternity, and she fall under this grandfather. You know what I mean?
Can I add something, please? So as a member of the National League of Cities, I attend their meetings nationwide, and they have many, many city clerks that attend the meetings. So that would tell me that they do have city clerks all over the United States. So be careful what you're asking for.
Well, I'm not proposing to get rid of the position.
no.
I'm just saying it should be maybe a civil service position in the future.
It's okay. I'm not here to
As it is right now, the civil service position does a bulk of the work. Correct?
Right. Well, and there's this debate about why is it part-time, as you raised, which I think is a really good point. It should be a full-time, it's an important position, as you point out.
It is. I'm going to recognize Susan Martin.
I have so much to say, I have forgotten most of it.
I know why.
The first thing I would say, I want to go back to this discussion of part-time versus full-time. And I believe, it would not surprise me if the intent of the absence of language of either is because of budgetary issues. So to change the language and say, why don't we have a full-time town clerk, city clerk, whatever it is really a budgetary issue. And I believe the language should remain absent.
Yes,
that's right. The other thing is, I am a big fan of looking at things not based on the person, but the position. So it kind of, and I love the both of you, so I'm not talking about you, but you have to get out of who's doing what, and who's in there now. It's irrelevant.
You're right.
Our role is to put in place what needs to be put in place moving forward. That's right. We'll all be long gone by the time, please God, that we do make the changes that we have. But,
Please, God.
because you never know. It's the electorate still has to vote on, or the registered voters. But and so anyway, the discussion of the budget is totally irrelevant. And the city council at any point in time, when they're doing the budget, could say, okay, it's time for a full-time city clerk, let's allocate that.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. There was one more thing I wanted to address. Just the story of, it's really more of a question if we were to discuss a non-elected city clerk, a non-elected town clerk. I believe the registrar of voters is probably a state mandate. Who would know that? Because we're talking about all of these elected positions, and I know the registrar of voter, you have to have a Democrat and a Republican. I think that's probably a state provision. I really don't know. But I'm assuming that we are required to have elected officials in that position.
Yes.
I'm asking, I don't know.
It's in the statutes, I think, Sue, that were handed out earlier.
Yeah.
I can't remember which one, but it says that there's an election and the top vote getter, I think it's the top two parties that get elected. Usually it's one of the major parties, then you can, in our case, Republican usually wins, but it could be an independent, but that's set by the by state statute. And that was the sidebar that the attorneys were having. We have to make sure that the city clerk and the town clerk
Are not by state.
can be changed to civil service positions. I can guarantee you at least one of them can be, because it's happened in a bunch of other towns. I think it applies to both. City clerk can definitely.
May have to be elected.
And Scott Burns was looking into that the other day, actually, because he had the same question about these positions. But Sue, I'd be curious, your thought on the proposal to say sometime in the future in 2031, make these
Civil service.
civil service.
Positions. Well, the reason why I asked about the registrar of voters is because, to me, that certification that they have to go through, I mean, that, to me, is a very professional, and, and you guys have all kinds of certifications and stuff. It's a very professional thing, so to have someone come in 2 years later and start all over again, it just seems ridiculous, but so I do feel as though, if the right qualified person in that position would be appropriate under civil service, and not necessarily, the electorate, but I would tend to lean towards that.
If I could just offer a comment through the chair, reinforcing your suggestion about full and part-time being an issue for the budget. We have two recent instances where that very thing has occurred through the unaffiliated salary ordinance. A few years back, we used to have only a part-time city attorney. We created two alternatives, a full-time salary and a part-time salary. Similarly, the converse of that was recently done in the last couple of years for the OPM director, which was always full-time only. We created a part-time option as well. So those two things can get handled either way. You could do that here if need be, simply through the salary ordinance. And I just want to reinforce that you don't need to do it through charter.
And one of the other recommendations, and I don't know if this can be done, it's according to the city charter, chapter 4, it reads city and town clerk. And because our offices both do different things, I was wondering, and maybe Mark can, because he has the historical knowledge of charter revision, of why we were always put together under one chapter and not be separated as two different departments, because we really don't do the same thing. Is there a way that we can just be given a chapter number just for city clerk and another chapter number for town clerk? The reasoning being is because our office is always getting calls, and the public is always assuming that, okay, it's the city clerk's office that does notary, it's the city clerk's office that does absentee. And it causes a lot of confusion, and I don't know the reasoning as to why we were put combined, because we're not a combined office.
Renumber the entire charter or put a 4 and a 4A. What we might want to do is what was suggested earlier, which is spell out even briefly what the duties of the town clerk are. When
Okay.
they do selections.
That could be
and
done.
anything else they might do. I know they do, it was mentioned earlier, they supposedly collect affidavits of residency. There may be a few other things. So we sort of talk about what the city clerk does, and we're silent on what the town clerk. We spelled out some duties. When the public read it, they might not be misled by the title and then see that they do different things.
Okay.
And then at the end, before you get off this, I don't need to cut you guys off, but we have 4 little
We're okay.
technical amendments.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to us.
If you want to react to any of these, if you go to chapter 4, section 3B, this is again reflective of how the ordinances come into salary. It's suggesting that in line 2, city clerk shall receive a salary which shall be established pursuant to the provisions of this charter and/or city ordinance, because they're not prescribed in the charter, they are prescribed in the existing city ordinance. So we should add in line 2, and/or city ordinance. Same thing for chapter 6A for the town clerk. Salary which shall be established pursuant to the provisions of this charter and/or city ordinance. So those are technical.
Or just say pursuant to city ordinance.
You could do that, but I didn't, who knows if there's something in the charter that I didn't see.
No, I think you're right about that.
And then the other one is also a technical issue for both, and it would be under 2B and 5B. Where it says classified service, I'd add the word civil. So it'd say classified civil service.
Could you repeat where you're talking about?
2B and 5B.
Page 7.
It should say the assistant town clerk shall be in the classified civil service, the assistant city clerk shall be in the classified civil service. And there again, you can see how town clerks have more assistants than the city clerk does.
Okay, I just want to, thank you. We are at 12:26 and we still have the law department, and there are still some people with their hands up for this. So if we could keep comments brief, that you're not presenting.
We're good.
Do you have anything else you would like to share?
No, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Have a good day and have good meetings, okay?
Thank you.
And I think you asked a question about, so we'll talk with him and with Heidi about that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I need to ask a question. All these documents that are being handed to you from the departments, how are we gonna get access to them? Because ultimately, the city council will decide whether we approve what's being proposed or not. So how are we getting all these handouts? How are we getting them?
They should become part of the record.
So where are they gonna be, in the city
Well,
clerk?
everything goes to the city clerk.
So we can go there and get everything?
Well, we'll have to make sure we're putting it together that way, but that's how it should work.
Okay, I notice you're not exhibiting anything, that's why I'm kind of asking. And number two is, I just want to say, the vast majority of municipalities in the state do not have a city clerk's office. They only have a town clerk. So when you combine the two offices and you have a part-time city clerk and a part-time town clerk, it's a luxury. Almost every town in the state solely has a town clerk, and the city clerk is strictly under the charter to support the city council. That is their role. The role of the city clerk is to support the city council. And if you look, you won't find it in New Haven, you won't find it in Hartford. A city clerk doesn't exist. It's a rarity here, just so everybody knows.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other discussion on this topic before we move to chapter 7?
I just want to acknowledge that, I thank you, I know this is our first meeting, and I want to ask that moving forward, that as a chair and as a commission, that we accept only information from you guys, not from the public, because I know that this is going to be a long, tedious task, and we, the council, are going to have our time to rebuttal, so I'm going to make sure that Francis gets us everything that we need. There's also going to be a charter revision web link under the city clerk's office for the general public to get information that's being shared. So for the essence of your time, to respect your time, and the public not getting one.
To address Councilman Maria's point, I'll have my staff take all these documents on Monday, unclip all of them, and scan it all like the city council does with their items, so we can upload it to the website.
Okay, cool. Thank you. But are you going to exhibit them so we know that what they are?
We can do that.
Yeah, we need to know what we're looking for.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, when you look at the documents, they're gonna be pretty self-explanatory, but we'll do it by meeting, maybe.
Tom,
anything that's
sorry. I already told Francis, we're gonna make sure that we get everything, attachments and everything, so we can upload it to the link. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
I mean, it's a stack of papers and needs to be scanned. I just said I'll let somebody in my office scan them and give them to her, and she can upload it.
So we'll go with the federal.
I'm sorry, if I
So
could
what
just
you're at-
clarify, you're supposed to exhibit, we have documents from the city clerk, 6 pages, right? If you don't say that in your minutes, we don't know what was handed to you today.
I
to
just
look
said,
for it.
they will be exhibited in the minutes, and then when they go over, she will have them. So each chapter, we will exhibit what was handed to us. And we can exhibit A, exhibit B, we will do that. It will be in the minutes.
Okay, so
I
it's
did-
normally done here, that's what I'm saying.
I'm doing.
No, but it's normally announced, and so this is gonna be Exhibit A, it's a certain number of pages, it's in reference. We can do that at the end.
Right.
This is the first meeting, we're
Yeah,
ironing out the
right.
kinks.
I'm putting it in the notes.
Yeah, we'll do it at the end.
Yes, that's what, I'm putting it at my understanding was that we were moving through, and each chapter, we were going to come again at the end. So at the end of each chapter, if we're saying chapter 7, there will be exhibit 1, 2, and 3. And that's what I was gonna say with the changes.
Okay.
Because that's what I thought we were noting here. So if she wants it in the forefront, I misunderstood that because I thought we were coming back to do that.
So we're gonna go back, but as far as putting all of our changes together and whether or not we should vote on them, I think that was the question. But keeping the record clear, we should be doing it as you receive them. But that part was skipped and no one talked about it, so we can do it after the fact. But moving forward, when people come up to discuss their chapter and they provide a handout, it should probably go something along the lines of, this is chapter 2, I'm gonna be giving you 5 documents, and you're gonna exhibit the document, you'll read it into the record, we'll move on, you'll label it, it goes to the clerk. We'll do that at the end, we'll make sure that it gets done properly. As far as announcing it on the record.
Correct, that's what I'm saying, I was writing it.
Yeah, we'll have to just make sure we get to that next time. But in the meantime, if we're ready to move on to chapter 7, the law department, there's one document that's going into the record. So I don't know if you want to exhibit it, chapter 7, exhibit A, and I provided a copy to everyone. I don't need to stand there, right? I know, you all can hear me. So my changes are few. Essentially, what I'm seeking to do is, one, have the city attorney be nominated by the mayor and approved by the council. And then having the city attorney, with the approval of the mayor, appoint a deputy that serves at the pleasure of the city attorney. The deputy city attorney is the only deputy in the charter that reports to someone other than the department head that they work for. So I'm trying to rectify that, with the exception of the contract compliance deputy, which is not a position that is currently filled anyways. But otherwise, all other deputies, like public facilities, OPM, finance, OPED, they serve at the pleasure of the department head and not the mayor. So I'm seeking to make that change here so that I can have control over my deputy. And then, what other change am I making? Oh, and then the ability for this city attorney to, with the approval of the mayor, appoint assistant city attorneys. We don't currently fund those positions because assistant city attorneys are part-time and we have associates, they're all full-time. I started as an assistant, so there used to be assistant city attorneys a couple of years ago, but we've eliminated them from the budget. But in the event that we end up bringing them back, I'd like the city attorney to be able to be the person who is appointing the assistants and having them serve at the pleasure of the city attorney as opposed to the mayor. And then section 4, the clarifying language there is to just put in there that the law department shall be legal counsel to the city council, the Board of Education, and every board, commission, department, and officer of the city. We've always interpreted it that way, that board and commission includes the city council and the Board of Ed. There's always been a debate about it. I'm seeking to clarify it here. I know that Councilwoman Pereira has some concerns about that with regards to the Board of Ed. There is statutes on this that allows municipalities and the Board of Ed to share services. If you take a look at Connecticut General Statute, section 10-241B, you can enter into cooperative agreements with administration for central offices duties. So this is not beyond what's allowed in the law, what's allowed by statute, and there are case law to support that also, and I will provide it for you so that you can review it. But this is just, and the Board of Ed will be voting on the person that's selected. They will be involved in the selection process because they will pay for the attorney that works in the city attorney's office, just like the deputy PCA pays for the attorney that works in the city attorney's office. So they will be involved in the process. It's not going to be someone appointed and pushed on them. It's someone that they will hire, but they will work within our office because outsourcing general counsel is not a good idea, right? I mean, you outsource your services. It's okay to do that on a case-by-case basis, but the person who's advising you shouldn't be worried about whether or not if they tell you something, you may fire them, right? That doesn't give you good legal services. So it should be someone that's staffed in an office and has job protection. But that's about all I have.
Thank you. Any questions for council?
I'm looking for you to add in the first line, the head of which shall be the city attorney, instead of paid city attorney.
Okay.
Because you use that language below. And I want to know that there is a boss in the city attorney department. The second thing is, and it has nothing to do with what you handed us, but relevant to your latter comments about services to agencies, to commissions, to departments, to whatever. Do you keep, as law firms do, billing slips as to how much time is spent on any area?
No. So we don't run our hours, like we don't keep time, but we do keep track of our cases. So we can tell you how many matters come through the city attorney's office, how many of them are related to a particular department, and how many lawsuits we get. Like all of those things are itemized. I can tell you like everything we're working on, but we can't tell you how much time we're spending on it because we're not tracking time that way.
Thank you.
Currently now, how many staff attorney do you have in your department working? And there's a reason why I'm asking this question.
So there are 10 associate city attorneys, and me, the city attorney, and we have 2 contract attorneys.
Now, is there?
And I need like 2 more associate city attorneys.
No.
Just putting it out there for the council.
Now, for what you're requesting based on your documentation, if the other department, the attorneys that are gonna be serving them, and now here we talk about the budget and so forth, so each department gonna forfeit their budget to accommodate that attorney who comes on board. How does that affect the city budget?
So currently, we're reviewing it with the Board of Ed. They're spending about $350,000 to $565,000 a year on legal fees, or legal, and that includes their settlement amounts, so we're trying to drill that down to figure out how much of that is actual outside counsel. But there's an anticipation that if you do it through our office, there's obviously will be a savings, right? Because we're not paying our attorneys between $350,000 and $500,000. I wouldn't mind, but it's not. So it would make more sense to keep them in-house for that purpose. There's a definite cost-benefit analysis that's being done here with the expectation that there will be a benefit.
Now, and here it said that the mayor will approve the attorney.
The mayor will appoint.
Oh, okay.
And the city council will approve. That's currently not the process. Currently, the mayor appoints, and the city council doesn't have a say in that.
Would this be a legal document go out to request these individual to come in as attorney, or are they going to be handpicked?
They're typically handpicked. There's some residency requirements, there's experience requirements, but that's not any different than how the mayor selects anyone else in his cabinet, right? Those people are selected.
If I can just give an example, because I've dealt with it numerous times over the years because of high turnover with the health director. The state statute requires the health director to be nominated by the mayor and approved by the city council. But the mayor goes out and picks who he chooses as long as they meet the minimum qualifications. So it's not a advertisement in the newspaper. The mayor will still pick. Yes, they can.
They did interview for those.
Because the only reason why I'm asking,
That's voluntary.
yeah, one of the reasons why I'm asking, and as I'm reading this document, as I spent all these years on the Ethics Commission board, and you've been there throughout some of our discussion and so forth. Whenever time someone picks someone or whatever, they always have some type of bias, thing in the background. So wouldn't it make sense, yes, they can appoint them, but wouldn't it make sense to go through a checks and balance, go through a advertising process so that they're gonna say, well, you know what, I'm gonna pick this guy over here because I know him and he's a
I
good
would
guy.
respectfully totally disagree. I would say you look to the national model. The president picks who he wants to run the Justice Department, and he picks it on a variety of criteria, one of which is shared philosophy, loyalty, those types of things. However, what Taisha's proposing here gives more power to the city council, both in terms of approving to make sure the person is qualified and competent, but also some of the changes she has in there with regards to her having people loyal to her, the deputy, the assistants, like the associates, are selected by her, and the deputy and assistants serve at her pleasure, not the mayor's pleasure. So the mayor can't leverage those, not that I'm suggesting the mayor will, but it eliminates the possibility. Every once in a while, the council says, you guys work for the mayor, you don't work for us. And we've tried to make it very clear that the charter says we work for everyone. But here, you're giving more independence to the city attorney, because it's not just the city attorney. She has a term, so she's protected. She's got a 4-year term. But now the people that serve at the pleasure don't serve at the pleasure of the mayor, but rather serve at the pleasure of the city attorney, the department.
And I thank you for that. I just want to be clear that we represent the people of the city of Bridgeport. And whatever we do, whatever we come up with, whatever change we make, and whoever we hire, again, we are representing the people, so we have to make sure that we do the checks and balances in order to provide a good and adequate service for the people of Bridgeport. So again, I appreciate what you're doing and what you're looking for in order to streamline your job in each department and bring in adequate people to represent, again, the people of Bridgeport. So again, I look forward for more.
Well, just for context on that, so I was appointed, I guess, essentially the first time in 2016, after the mayor ran for office in 2015. I was also on the ballot. I ran for council, and I was supporting another candidate. He hired me. This past election, I was supporting another candidate. In fact, he was sitting next to me at Black Rock School, where I was vocally supporting another candidate next to Joe Ganem, and he hired me. So this doesn't always end up being someone's friend, right, or someone's political ally. I was the opposition and was hired twice as the opposition. So these things don't always,
Correct.
It's not always what you think it may be.
No, understand.
Tom?
Yeah, I just wanted to voice support for the concept of nominating by the mayor and approval by the council. I'm not, a traitor to mayor's powers, but I just think that makes sense for the reasons. And I think that change in this language goes very well hand in hand with the proposed language about the city attorney representing the city council, the board of ed, and everybody. That's already pretty much assumed around here. But I think there's one voice that speaks for everybody on a matter of charter, right? We may have our own disagreements, interpretations, whatever. I fight with Taisha about charters and ordinances about 50 times a week. But at the end of the day, there's one voice that speaks for the entire city about how we interpret this document, and one office that represents us in court. So I just think these changes make a heck of a lot of sense. And by having the council involved in that process, I think that gives it a little more like you work for everybody kind of thing. And there are more voices to make sure we have a good, responsible person. We don't have a political hire in this sensitive role. But my question on this to you, Taisha, was you didn't really change a heck of a lot in subsection A, and it is clunkily worded. In fact, your own appointment did not happen in this fashion in December, to take effect January for 4-year term. So my thinking is just to maybe abolish this and just say the city attorney is appointed for a 4-year term subject to city council approval, and just 4 years from whenever. And that would be the same for fire chief, for police chief, for health director, the other ones that are appointed for terms. What do you think about that?
My only concern is I think that the charter contemplates continuity of service between elections, right? So the city attorney serves for a month after the mayor. So should the mayor not get reelected and there's a change in administration, the city attorney is still there for a month for making sure that there's some sort of continuity. So I would be concerned about removing that, right? Because then you could do 4 years, and if it does run hand in hand with the mayor, then we could both leave at the same time. And I think that would be a little difficult, considering that most other political appointees would probably also be going, right? There wouldn't be a CAO, that person would leave more likely than not. and what if the mayor leaves. So if you have the city attorney do it too at the same time, you're gonna vacate basically top of the food chain, and there's not gonna be anyone really continuing or filling in gaps. I think it's just a bridge. So if there's some way to create that bridge and keep it, I don't care how that works.
And so when we nominated, I think it's a good counter, so when we nominated you, the mayor nominated you to be the city attorney, you're filling the term. So in other words, you started as late, quote unquote, you're only filling through that 4-year term. So your term ends 1 month after the mayor's term of office is over.
January.
And that makes sense because you don't want a new mayor coming in to have a city attorney that they, will be helpful during that month, but you don't want it to go 3 or 4 months because you have a rolling 4-year term, if you know what I'm saying. If they didn't start until April, you wouldn't want it to run that much further beyond the election cycle. So this sort of falls into, if it isn't broken.
I think there's no way to write the charter to rectify the last election situation, right? Like, I don't think that anybody anticipated we'd be having 4 elections. So I don't know that there's any way to fix that in the
No,
charter.
what I was thinking was just with these other people that are appointed for a term, they happen when they happen. So when police chief's done, we nominate somebody, and his 4 years starts upon his appointment. And, for all these positions, this is unique, but I see you made a compelling case as to why, so I'll leave it alone.
Anything else? Any other comments or questions for the law department? Yes.
It just hits me that what's the language in your contract? Your term comes up to a hard dead end?
Yes, my term ends December 31st, 2027.
She does not have a contract.
I don't
She's
have an
appointed
appointment.
a charter term that
I see,
ends a month
okay.
after the mayor sits in his new term, and her salary is established by the salary ordinance. That's it.
The expiry of that December 2027, there's nothing in it about shall serve until somebody else is appointed. So there may be a lapse period.
No, because just like every other officer of the city, if the other mayor does not push someone through, you still serve as a holdover under the general provision that all officers serve until their successor is appointed and qualified. But that's at the option of the incoming mayor and the city council. They have absolute right to have somebody commence January 1 month later. But if they don't, there'll be somebody serving in that capacity.
So there's a safety net,
Yes.
in other words. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we are going to, due to time, we are going to table Chapter 1, General Provisions. We don't have a speaker for that anyway, so we do need to table it. And we need to also, we need to do the minutes from the last meeting, and we also have to plan our next date. So, and the topic.
So maybe we'll say that it's 3 pages.
So motion to approve the minutes? Is that what you're looking for?
There was a question on, you have basically 2 sets of minutes, am I correct?
Okay, so let's get into minutes. We saved minutes for the end because it's actually kind of messy right now. We're gonna wrap together, so. No reflection on Terry, by the way, she's doing an amazing job, but we accidentally got,
You still have to exhibit the document.
oh,
Which,
she wants to exhibit these documents.
oh, so maybe we should do that first.
Do that, I'm gonna use the backwards.
Okay.
So you guys do that.
The first document I would like to put on for the record is the, oh, wait, that's not, sorry. Is City Councilwoman Maria Pereira Charter Revision Recommendations, Exhibit 1. This one is from city clerk. This one is.
Taisha, you can have this, Councilwoman Ferrer.
I'm just gonna go around. No, that one. It's this side. Do you have the city clerk? No notes. Okay. The city clerk will be, exhibit 2.
City clerk, which,
Oh, sorry.
Council.
This one?
It's dated February 26, 2026, the city clerk.
So sorry.
Would like the title assistant
So,
as exhibit 2.
exhibit chapter 2, right?
We just go back to, exhibit 1 is 6 pages.
That's what I was, yeah, I was trying to get.
Oh, this is,
This is the city clerk. He gave it to us from the city clerk. Yes. Oh. Is this yours? So did you
No.
put 2?
This was, I don't know.
And it does.
Oh, because she has a proposal,
That we did
about
not
something.
discuss. Oh, see.
I handed out two things. I handed out this one, which is about the budget schedule.
okay, so this is chapter 9.
I handed out
Section
this,
9.
although honestly, we don't even need this because
But you
all this
handed
stuff.
it out.
section 9,
So chapter 9, there's 2 documents.
Wait a minute, chapter now?
Because we did chapter 9 for the budget. With the budget. So chapter 9, there's 2 documents. So we're gonna do, are you doing continuous numbers, or do you want to make this exhibit 2? Sure. Okay,
Wait, did we do the first one?
so exhibit 1 was Maria's document, Councilwoman Carrera's document. Right. So what do you have for 2? Because I don't have anything yet. I'm going.
I'm sorry, can you document revision 1?
Revision?
Revision 1, because I gave a different one out of the hearing, just to be clear.
Oh, okay.
Revision 1.
So February 26th, so that's when the city clerk. Yeah, I wanted to go in order, because we went. Okay, so exhibit. The order of how you handle the meeting. So the first one was chapter 9.
The first one was chapter 9.
Was budget. Okay, so chapter 9, 2 documents. The first one is exhibit 2, I would assume, with the terms and the OLR. So that's gonna be exhibit 2.
Is that the one that says February 26th?
No, it says section
Oh, I have that one, yeah.
9-187
This is
terms.
exhibit 2, I had
That's exhibit 2. Okay, and then chapter 9 also had a document that is 5 pages, and that's exhibit 3.
What did the front of that mean?
Taisha said, hand that out.
So this is exhibit 3. Exhibit 3 was a handout from Tom Gaudet about chapter 9 and the resolution that he provided. That's exhibit 3. All right.
That's the one with Lydia's signature on the front?
Yes, this one.
Oh, I thought that was it.
That's 3.
Of chapter 9.
How we doing? Good. You good? Okay. So then, the next one was the town clerk, right? Or did we get any handouts from the sheriffs?
No.
Okay. All right, so the next one is the town clerk. It's the document dated February 26, 2025. That's gonna be exhibit 4. City, and let me just count the
That's
pages.
11
Give me-
pages.
Okay, thank you. And then exhibit 5 and 6 are 2 separate documents that came from me one page was two-sided, so I guess 2 pages. And then the second one was from Mark. And yeah, he's gonna be, those are exhibits, 5 and 6. Yeah. So 5 is gonna be the one that's for me, yep. That you all got a copy of, that's 5. And then there's another one from Mark that I didn't give to, and you all don't have it.
What is this?
But it's exhibit 6, but it'll become part of the record, so we can get you copies. That's exhibit 1. This, I don't think we've touched this yet. What is this?
We did not touch, we did not talk about that.
That's the registrars.
Oh, we skipped the registrars. Oh, we're just gonna put it, they're just gonna be next, they're gonna be 7. So the registrar's document is exhibit 7.
They did talk on this one because it was their.
Oh, yes,
Yeah,
you're right,
no,
you're right.
I-
They did talk.
Okay.
I have
So
it.
this is number
Okay,
7.
so I have to change.
Yeah, so that'll be exhibit
Can
7.
I just ask a different question? What is her first?
Oh, so at the last meeting, she gave, what's this one? No, she gave us, it looks almost identical to what she provided us today. There was just some updates.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're gonna give us this time. I'm sorry, I'm confused. Yeah, 7.
Yeah.
This is 7.
6 is Mark's.
Yeah.
So I'll let you get it for you.
6. You don't have 6, I do.
Right. We have 7, so 6 is skipped.
6 is hers, 7 is ours.
I only have 2, but she has them.
You don't have 6.
Okay.
I was putting it in notes, that section. Exhibit.
So it's really tight. Times, we have other exhibits.
Well, we're missing.
We should have 7.
We don't have 6.
We don't have 6. I'm gonna get you.
I have it. I have 6.
You have it.
Yeah.
I'll get it for everyone else. Okay.
I have 6.
I'm gonna go over and make copies.
You want to take this one? Because it's already got it.
She's gonna give me this one.
It's in the hallway. I might have spelled it wrong, but I got glasses.
Nope, you did. You did great.
I got my glasses.
Time to go. Oh, don't like, time to go.
We do need to set our next date. One of the 2.
Madam Chair, could I ask, I'm wondering if it's possible for us to set up some kind of a regular schedule so that we know I mean, I know it's very difficult for everyone to come into the same night, but I was kind of hoping we'd have a plan in place so that we could all plan.
That's.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, motion to extend the meeting by 15 minutes because, remember, we all said 1 o'clock and we turned into pumpkins, but I've been advised by legal counsel that we can make a motion to extend the time by, I think it's limited under the law, I don't remember what it says, but we can do that. Right?
Just a few minutes, right?
And what if we don't vote for it?
We do need to, we
So-
want to get a date down,
I second it, let's go. Let's do it.
Let's go.
15 minutes, so the new end time will be 1:15, so let's get a move on.
All right, can you talk about the issue with
No, we need a vote.
All in
Oh,
favor?
sorry.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion passes.
Okay, on the minutes. We're a little clunky because we were trying to figure this out. We elected a secretary, Terry, who's taking a lot of notes. We also, though, had a stenographer that typically for boards and commissions takes very good minutes because they watch the video and they sit there and they do all the stuff. Now, and they were very good. Not to say Terry's yours weren't, but I'm wondering whether or not you really want to sit through all the meetings and write all the stuff down. There's kind of 2 different tasks that need to be performed. One is, within 48 hours, the votes that we take have to make it to the city clerk's office so that someone can go there and look at what we voted on. And that's very basic stuff, like what was the motion, who seconded it, how did the vote go, and that's it. The minutes, the draft minutes, don't need to be submitted for 7 days and then posted online for public availability. So my proposal, and I'm really looking to the chairs and to Terry to see how they feel about this, is let's just let the stenographer take the video and continue to do the long minutes. But Terry's function as the secretary is still to record the basic votes that we need that have to be provided to the clerk's office quickly.
Reverend, that's fine with you?
So moved. Yep, that's
Yeah,
easy.
okay. In which case, you can focus more and not have to do, because I have to tell you, the 5 minutes I did it at the first meeting, I was like, I couldn't read, think, and write at the same time. It's hard stuff. So what that would do with respect to the minutes that we had from the first meeting is you don't have those yet from the clerk. So I guess the proposal would be we'll have the clerk send those around to everybody, look at them, and debate them at the next meeting. And if we like them, adopt them, and it'll be the same thing.
So would be a motion to.
It doesn't change what she does as the secretary with the votes that get recorded with the clerk, because she's the official kind of arbiter of that. But the minutes that reflect everything else we talked about, that's what we'd be voting on, and that you don't have yet.
So we will be addressing the minutes from our first organizational meeting at our next meeting.
Yes, so I'm gonna make a motion to table those.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great.
And then, my one caveat to this whole thing is, I also think it'd be helpful, Terry, because, and when you've served on the city council, it's tough to go through all these minutes and like read it word for word and look for changes. So Terry, if you could be, since you're recording the motions anyway, the main person, everyone has a responsibility to look at the minutes and make sure they're accurate, but if Terry could take extra ownership over making sure that they're accurate, I think that would be helpful. Okay.
Congratulations, Reverend.
I'm offering as much help as I can.
Okay, so now we need to discuss dates for a meeting, length of time, location.
So I think I heard somebody saying on the side, and I completely agree, it seems like Saturdays seem to be a time that most people can make it, but I guess people might want to mix it up too.
Yeah, like I can't come.
The next 2 Saturdays, I'm not available.
You're not available?
Nope.
No, so,
I have other events. Sorry.
oh, this is exhibit 6. Thank you. This is number 6.
Oh, it already says number 6, isn't that?
So we can make this case available in the evenings as well.
So,
5 to 6 o'clock-ish meetings.
yeah, she has
I
it.
think we need to set some sort of schedule for at least the next 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I think there's some wisdom in just doing the next 2 weeks for now. Not that it wouldn't be great to figure out everything, but one, we don't. The other thing is, we have recordings being done, and they're also gonna be doing the recordings for the budget. And so I'd like to work with Scott Burns as an attorney and IE to figure out what the budget schedule is going to be, and then maybe come to the next meeting with a proposal about what our meetings can look like, such that we can make sure that Barry can record those and these, and we don't have an issue.
So at this time, you're just looking to schedule our next meeting only?
Or the next two.
The next 2
weeks.
But is it also possible to look into April, like the
Or is that too far?
So what I would do is, because the mayor's budget is due in the first week of April, and the budget committee is gonna be setting its schedule by then, I figured let's just do something in the next 2 weeks, and I'll work with you chairs to figure out what's on the agenda. I don't think we necessarily need to decide that right now. Let's just get one more date on the calendar with the intention, strong intention, of working with the council president on their schedule, and I'll come as a result of that conversation with a proposal for you all to consider for what our meetings could look like for the rest of the process, which we can always change. But at least we'll have an idea, to Sue's point, at least we know most likely when we're gonna be here, so we have some pretty.
Can we, I guess maybe we could start with day 1, Mondays. No, Mondays.
Not for me.
All right, we only have to worry about having 7 members here for a quorum. all right? So we're not gonna get all 13 members on the same agenda.
Wait a minute, I go to my city council meetings on Monday.
That's fine.
Yeah,
Just
Monday
discuss
is
Mondays,
out.
and I'm trying
How
to
about we just do a show of hands, is anybody available on Mondays? I mean, this Monday I am, but not usually.
Well, for now, we're just deciding next
Tuesday.
week, right?
Tuesday.
Tuesdays. Tuesday looks good. Not everybody needs it.
I know, but that's only 5 minutes.
It's only 5 members?
Only 5 people could come on Tuesday?
I can do Tuesday. Hold on. Wait, keep your hands up again.
For
Council
clarification,
members.
this is the 18th.
Commission members. Tyson.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, okay.
Tuesday.
So Tuesday, the 18th.
Well, how about Wednesday? You wanna
Yep.
Should we see which one's the most popular?
Okay,
Yeah.
how about Wednesday, the 19th? Raise your hands, keep them alive.
Joseph, start with the 19th.
You said Wednesday the 19th.
The Wednesday, the 19th. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Be in the conference.
Nope. How about Thursday, the 20th?
Tuesday it is.
So
Tuesday and Thursday.
Tuesdays and Thursdays, but Thursdays need to be a little, not, I can't do it.
Right, so it's Tuesday.
So Tuesday. The 18th. Tuesday. The 18th.
Well, okay.
Friday.
I'm a giant idiot. Trying to do this for Tuesday and come up with an agenda and have, what we did today, we tried to be productive with 3 hours of speakers and stuff. I was actually thinking, can we push this meeting 2 weeks from now? So how about that following Tuesday or Thursday? Because I
What
don't know
about,
if we're there.
we received a lot of information. When are we gonna ever discuss that?
Yeah, that would be good for us
Can
to
we
start
just
discussing.
So I don't think we need to invite other people in until we
And then we
go
just
through all of this first.
And then you table something?
And we table things, so I would
Minutes, we
say,
can do minutes.
like, we
Yeah,
need to
so
come
we can
together and
probably
talk.
get through some housekeeping stuff.
Tuesday's fine.
Tuesday the
That's good.
18th, right?
Commissioners, is that a good idea to have us Tuesday to discuss what we just absorbed today?
Yeah.
Do we have enough time to,
Review whatever.
no, to announce that we're gonna have it?
No, this would just be us.
Oh, no,
But
I see.
public notice, public notice.
Oh.
24 hours.
For FOI is 24 hours.
Okay, so we can do it Monday.
Yes, 24 hours.
Okay.
Tuesday.
Tuesday's 24 hours.
Yes,
The
we're doing it
18th, at what
Tuesday, right?
time?
As long as it's not gonna, it's gonna be in person, right?
Yeah.
At what
Person.
time?
It's a
5 or 6? 6?
I'm open.
What are most?
Commissioners, 6 o'clock?
I would say six.
5 is okay for me.
Five, we do 5, I can make it,
Five.
but I can't make 6.
Six.
All right, let's do a vote, 5 o'clock. 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
I'm abstaining, I can't make a vote.
All right,
Um,
6.
Six. That's Tuesday, 18th.
Tuesday.
Or do we do a compromise and say 5:30?
I have a conflict.
Are we gonna do the 25th?
So the secretary has a conflict
I have
for
a conf- I
Tuesday,
have
so
another
who's
meeting
gonna,
at that time.
who's gonna be secretary on Tuesday?
Right, you guys have to have a secretary.
We can do that. Okay. Thank
And
you.
are we gonna have another meeting on the 25th or 26th?
We can discuss
Yes.
that, maybe,
You should, I think you should, I think you should,
at
because
the
not
meeting,
everybody's
you
gonna
can
be
elect
here
a
to talk
What are
about.
people's, what are people availability on the 25th? I'm not available. but-
Oh, well, what day are you available?
I can do that Wednesday.
Okay, is there, how many on the Wednesday?
The 26th?
Yeah.
Wednesday, the
26th.
26th?
Wednesday, 26th?
Wednesday, the 26th, no?
That doesn't.
Tom, can you come?
I'm sorry, yeah, I'm looking at the calendar, just
Wait.
trying to see what
Yeah.
landlines.
And the 26th.
Wait, see if you're.
Wait.
You guys are Thursday.
Okay, 26th again, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I can do it too.
Yep.
So,
Wait, what was that?
26th, could you do the
March 26th, right?
March 26th?
For our regular meeting?
Yep.
For,
That's Wednesday though, it's a Wednesday now.
Yeah, Tuesday is supposed to be a meeting to talk about.
Just what we
Tuesday,
just
we're
voted.
debriefing about everything that went on.
But that's Tuesday, the 18th.
The
Right,
18th.
Okay, but the
That's
next
six.
regular meeting, the 26th.
The 26th at 6 again.
So I think if we
Yeah.
meet the same day every week.
At
Yeah,
6
why can't
again?
we do somebody give us something excluded?
It would always be the same person excluded if they have something.
Right.
Yeah, that's, yeah.
We're gonna have to mix it up.
Yeah, can we see what Thursday?
And then we
is,
throw
right?
in a Saturday.
Okay, because we got a Tuesday, a Wednesday.
Saturday, April 5th?
No.
Let's go to
No,
March
no, let's
26th.
get this.
Well, we're in the budget season at that point, and that's why I was proposing we hold
All
off
right,
on
yeah, we'll
that
wait
discussion.
to that.
So right now, I believe we got March 18th at 6 o'clock. I guess our location would be here, yes?
Yeah.
We like the setup, right? Is this
Yeah, I
better?
like
Yeah,
that.
yes.
We're not on top of each
Actually,
other
I
here.
like it too because we have the tables, we can move if we want.
And then March 26th, which was a Wednesday.
Yeah.
And what time is that, 6? 6 o'clock also. So those are the 2 dates that we have set, other than that, on March 26th, I'm guessing we can set up our other dates. And then, in between March 18th and March 20, before March 26th, we decide what we're gonna discuss on March 26th.
On March 18th.
No, March 18th is
Oh,
get
to
the
brief
tour of
them.
all our stuff. Am I correct? Is that where we're going?
Yeah.
And then in between the 18th and the 26th, we decide where we're gonna go, whether we're gonna go to civil service, we're gonna discuss civil service on the 26th forward. So is that understandable and everything good?
Yes.
All right.
And always here?
We're gonna be here. Can we use this
Make this,
space?
I will confirm that this is the space for now, let's notice it.
It's free.
It's free?
Just
Both days it's free? Okay.
Just for clarity, I know we had discussed also some public meetings and going out into the community.
We heard a
Are we
mention of
talking
civil.
about that
Oh, I'm sorry.
as well? Are we scheduling those two?
I think when we do the scheduling next week.
Yeah, we need to do the scheduling next week, and I did bring some things to talk about that as well, so.
Okay, so that will
We
be.
will be talking about that.
And are we talking 6 to
I think we
8
would
or
respectfully
6 to 9? We have to put an end on it?
postpone, don't schedule in yet for civil service. That's an immensely complex matter. We're having internal meetings with the civil service personnel director and others.
Okay.
That should not come up in the near future.
Yeah, as long as possible, lay down.
I'm gonna say 6 to 8 p.m. Is everybody okay with that?
I wouldn't call it end time.
You can have
No,
that.
don't call it? Okay, never mind.
Suggestion.
Scratch
should be
that,
an
erase that.
That should be an aspiration, but don't put an end time on it.
Okay.
Just have a notion that we're gonna try to keep the meetings to 2 hours and less,
Okay,
but don't lock yourself in.
okay, thank you.
So bottom line, we have March 18th at 6 o'clock and March 26th at 6 o'clock. This location. And I'm guessing for our March 26th, we'll determine what we're going to discuss in regards to the charter.
Did you have a question?
My only other suggestion to the chair is that maybe, you send out a doodle poll
Yes.
for
I was
everybody.
thinking that, yeah.
And just to kind of, so that way there's kind of, can be a draft of the consensus of the best dates for everybody's availability.
I'm sorry, there's no speaking for the people of the public.
I am.
Well, I did too. I did too.
Cut it out.
I'm not speaking on matters that they're debating, I'm
Okay.
speaking
It
on
was
the
helpful
scheduling.
information, thank you.
I'm just asking.
If there isn't any further discussion,
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
did Terry get that?
All those in favor?